5 of the 9 candidates who won say they support the lanes, but only 4 of the 9 winners say that bike lanes are working well as is. As such, cycling advocates say they're concerned about possible changes. Councillor-elect Joan Pickett campaigned on stopping bike lane expansion.
It's not my intent to do away with anything that exists, but what I do want to do is have us really look at what is happening on our streets from a much broader perspective than just separated bike lanes.
Pickett, who was a plaintiff in a failed lawsuit to stop bike lane construction in Cambridge, says voters told her that their concerns were being ignored. She says that as a member of the council, she'll push for streets that are re-engineered to better accommodate all forms of traffic. In Cambridge, Bob C., GBH News, 89.7.
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. A little update later in the show. We're going to be joined by State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. We've got a busy Tuesday here at the BPL. A.G. Campbell will zoom in at 11.
Yeah.
Okay. Then for 12:30, 1:30, this is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Ask the mayor. I was suddenly confused.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't think the
Really?
Attorney General is coming
Really
today.
shocking.
No, she's coming on Tuesday, and that's
Yeah?
Ask the Mayor that day, too, from 12:30 to 1:30.
I think you conveyed that really clearly to the audience.
Really big day. On Tuesday,
Yeah.
not so big day today.
Okay, fine. Now, I actually would say if you are feeling miserable, and everybody I know is feeling miserable at one time or another,
Yeah.
you're going to feel a lot less miserable in
You
about
are.
25 minutes.
Some unbelievable music.
When Kat Wright and her
Oh, my
colleagues
God.
do some singing. They are fabulous. So stick around or show up or do something. You know, we've all had the experience of going to a restaurant not being totally satisfied with the experience. Maybe the order got screwed up. Maybe it came out too cold. I don't know. What happens after that experience says a lot about a person. Do you or do you not write a review about it online? Negative so-called revenge reviews are on the rise on sites like Yelp, apparently tripling since 2020, according to the National Customer Rage Survey is the name of the thing. That's real.
Customer rage.
There's a great story in The Atlantic this week by this guy, Jacob Sweet, that centers on one Chinese restaurant. It's called Dragon Lee in upstate New York. I love this too. That's been biting back, writing blistering replies to customers who opt to trash them, writing things like, this is all caps, by the way, "We do not want to deal with customers like you. You do not deserve our service. Do us and everyone a favor. Do not ever come back to this place again." So the number to text or call is 877-301-8970. How do you feel about negative reviews? Are they a helpful way to get the word out about a restaurant? Not just restaurants. What about comments on stories? They're rarely saying great article. What is it about the human condition? This is the central theme here, where we are so much more enthusiastic about documenting our negative opinions and experiences than positive ones. And by the way, this is one thing you cannot blame on Donald Trump. This precedes Donald Trump. And by the way, if you're one of the guilty parties who writes these negative reviews and doesn't give a damn if you're going to destroy the business of the restaurant, for example, or the morale of the columnist, did you read, by the way, give us a call. Did you, when you were at the Herald of the Globe, you didn't even read the comments on your stories, did you? Or did you?
Mostly no.
Why? Because it's too depressing?
Because you don't want to have people calling you a jerk, and that's every name in the book because they disagree with your politics.
It was worse than a jerk. Marjorie wrote the sweetest column.
That's right.
She is on the front page of the Boston Herald.
Yeah.
Was it Christmas?
Well, it was when that movie came out about Marley the dog.
Marley and Me or whatever
Marley
the hell.
and
Okay,
Me.
fine.
So I wrote a little thing about Peanut and Me, my little dog, Harry the Pea, best dog from sea to sea.
So there's a front page, full page picture on the front
Very
page
nice
of the Herald
picture.
of Marjorie
Dog
holding
looked
her
great.
dog.
Little
And
dog,
I read the
10-pound dog.
comments before the first comment was, she's probably having sex with that dog.
That's
that
right.
was the first one. And that was one of the kindest ones. They said
Yeah.
they eviscerated you about writing the sweet holiday
You don't want to
story
go through
about your love for your
200
dog.
comments from people
I did.
calling you names.
I did.
They weren't as bad in the Globe.
They weren't?
No. But what was the funniest thing is when I worked for that Catholic website at the Globe, I thought, well, I'm gonna get some relief from these horrible comments now.
Bad?
I'm working for the Catholic website. No, the Catholics were just as vicious as everybody else, so it didn't really matter.
So let me read you, before we get to your calls and texts at 877-301-8970, I read you one response from this Dragon Lee restaurant, which I really loved. Here are a few more that the guy who owns the place has written. Your comment just shows how ignorant you actually are. Another one says, it's one less dunce we have to deal with. I mean, you know how satisfying, cathartic it must feel? You're working your you-know-what off to run a decent establishment. And by the way, my experience is, even if you get a ton of good reviews, if there's one blisteringly bad review, it causes
really
you to say,
hurts.
maybe I don't want to go there.
Yeah, it really hurts, and especially during the pandemic.
I agree.
You know, when people,
agree.
restaurants were just struggling to stay afloat, and it was so hard, and the masks, and all that kind of stuff, and people wrote nasty things then. I don't know. I mean, if something really outrageous happens.
Don't go again.
Or call them up. Or something like
Exactly.
that. Try to have a conversation with them.
By the way, just before we get started, just to get you in the mood, here's an actor dramatically reading a real one-star review for one of the great restaurants in America, Chuck E. Cheese.
The Chuck E. Cheese band sucked. The drummer was off cue. The bass player was holding his bass upside down. And Chuck E. failed to move. It was, in fact, one epic fail.
You know, when I read something like that, you say to yourself, you imagine the person sitting down after his or their experience and typing this.
I know.
It's really I am as negative as the day is long, as I think you know. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate your support. Jamie's laughing. I don't think I've ever.
You haven't?
No, I don't think I've written. I occasionally say negative things on the air, but I don't think. I don't think. In any case, Dave in the car, you're first on Boston Public Radio with Marjorie Egan and me, Jim Browdy. Hi.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Love
this
that.
one always gets my goat.
What is it?
This one gets my goat because I think people are either cowardly or they just want to show off when they do those reviews, because they could be constructive enough to say, we'd like to speak to the manager or the chef or somebody, and, actually do something that could change a situation for the next people who come in. But instead, we want to be witty or something. We want to make the world think we're really hip in some way, in an old-fashioned kind of term. Hey, I could do this too. I see a lot of people that seem like they just barely can articulate sentences. And
well, there are a lot.
Why
Dave,
is something like that published?
There are a lot of angry people, and I think that it's an outlet for anger, maybe about something else, kind of thing. But I'm with you. If you have a legitimate concern and you don't want to screw the business or sink them, then as you and Marjorie said, make a phone call and see if you can get it fixed. Dave, thanks for your first call. Hope you do it again soon.
At this Dragon Lee restaurant, they correct the grammar and the punctuation.
Grammar too?
Of the people.
Do they really?
They do that too. So good for them.
By the way,
Well,
let me
listen
be clear. Can I clarify something I said before about comments on articles? A comment like the ones I mentioned on your thing about you and your dog, that's what I was talking about.
Yep.
If someone writes a political piece in the Globe or the Times or the Washington Post and you're unhappy with the point of view, I think you almost have an obligation to say something if you're really moved. That's a different kind of thing. I'm talking about the gratuitous comment that does nothing but harm to whoever the subject of your comment
Have you
is.
noticed in certain times that every third text comment is blocked?
That's usually racism.
It's usually racism.
I think,
who gets tons of those?
Yeah.
And she's black. No surprise.
Renee Graham. I know she
at the
does.
Globe, she'll write something that's controversial. Blocked. So it says something that's got to be pretty damn bad to be blocked. Phil in Danvers, thank you for calling.
Hello, Phil.
Hi there. I'm a long-time listener and sometimes very frequent caller.
Thank you for doing that.
I'm calling about, and
Well, that's working
so
well.
I'll call
We lost you for a second. You got to say it
yeah.
again after you said you're a frequent whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm a frequent.
Right.
I go to Lowe's, Chinese restaurant in Salem Willows,
Okay.
and they the owner retired after 40 years, and new people took over.
Yeah.
Well, there's a cult following there for their chop suey sandwiches.
Sandwiches.
And chop suey sandwiches. They're very simple, but I love them. And it's either you love them or you don't, you know. So anyway, someone took a picture of the new chop suey sandwiches, and I think they're even better. So people are putting, oh, I love it. I'm glad they're back. And then you see some people, because there was a picture posted by the person who gave the positive review. And then you see a couple comments, that is disgusting. You know, I threw up and this and that. And
That's
these
nice.
people have never been there, you know. So, like, there really is a following for these. So I got really upset. And I wrote there, I said, I've had them before for years, and they're even better now. I love them.
Oh.
And I cannot stand negative people, you know, that have nothing better
Phil,
to
good
do
for
with
you.
their time. I put it right in there, and my brother and I love them, except the time a seagull stole one of my brother's chop suey sandwich.
We'll write a comment about the seagull then. By
That's
the way,
very nice, Phil.
Zoe is our colleague, is a big fan apparently of the chop suey sandwich at this local institution. And I just Googled all the negative reviews. You know what they have in common, Phil?
What?
They're all voting for Ron DeSantis. It's
Okay, there you go.
amazing coincidence.
There you go.
Phil, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
We have someone who just said, I was thinking about writing a review about a skeevy chiropractor, but can't bring myself to do it and warn other people. As a business owner, I never want another business to suffer. It's hard being in business. I mean, I don't know if you had a skeevy chiropractor. What does skeevy chiropractor mean, do you think?
A skeevy I don't know.
That's a bad sign.
Grabbing something they
Very
shouldn't
bad
or
sign.
something?
Could
I
be.
don't know.
Could be. They were doing more than chiropractic, perhaps.
Do you remember the first time we ever interviewed Frank Rich? And do you remember
Gross.
what his name was?
Butcher of Broadway.
Butcher of Broadway. He was then, Frank Rich, everybody now knows, the executive producer of Veep. He used to be a political columnist for the New York Times. Before that, he was a theater critic for the New York Times. His nickname was the Butcher of Broadway.
That's right.
You could spend $18 trillion on your show, rehearse for a year, one bad review in the New York Times.
Yeah, you could shut it
gone.
down. You know, that's a tough one, though. I've talked to Jared about that.
I know you have. I mean,
And
you've done it on
Jared,
the air.
Jared Bowen, who fills in when Jim is on vacation or
I
I'm
think
on
they know
vacation.
who he is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of the nicest guys in the world. And I think he tries
I don't
to
think he's that
avoid
nice, but
that.
go ahead.
He tries to avoid that by not going to bad shows. I mean, trying to pick ones that he can be positive about as opposed to negative about. Because these theaters are closing down. That place over in Watertown that shut down, that was there
New
for there.
Repertory Theater?
Yes. Yeah, so...
Well, by the way, in defense of Jared, who, by the way, also hosts the Culture Show.
That's right. It's
with
on 2
Callie
o'clock
and
today.
Edgar, it's on at 2 o'clock
It's
today.
going to be a really good one today.
Callie will give us you know what's on it?
Yeah, I heard a preview.
Oh, well, Callie's going to give us a preview,
Yep,
too.
she is.
He's honest. I mean, if he doesn't like something, he makes clear there were problems with it, but he doesn't trash it in a way that destroys their work and their
And you know what else?
whatever, you know?
Often when you go, the press nights are often early in the run, and they fix things. You know, they fix a lot of
excellent
things.
point.
So it gets better as it goes along. Anyway, Lori in Boston, what do you think?
Hi, Lori.
Hi, long time.
Thank you.
Anyway, my ex-husband is the most negative person you have ever known, and he used to write worse than you, Jim.
Thank you.
He used to.
That's really
He
bad.
used to write. He would write restaurant reviews for several magazines around Massachusetts, and I have to give him credit because if something was really not good, he just wouldn't write about the restaurant because he didn't want to ruin somebody's business.
That's good.
But otherwise, he would always try to find, even if it wasn't the best, he would try to find something good about it.
Oh, good.
And if you talk to management, they'll give you free dessert. They'll give you a drink, or they'll comp something because something else was bad. So I really don't like these people that trash these places. They don't understand, and maybe they don't run a business themselves.
I'm with you.
in
Hey,
my
Lori, is this negativity why he's your ex-husband, or what's the reason? I don't want to pry.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
well,
that was it.
Yes.
He was out the
He
door.
wrote a bad review
One, two-
about you, apparently. Lori, thank you.
Lori,
That
thank
was a
you
great
very
call.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the call. Stephen Newbury says when you submit a comment to the Wall Street Journal, your comment has your name on it. A lot of people think that's a good idea.
Who started that, Marjorie?
Dan Kennedy.
Dan Kennedy
yeah,
at Northeastern.
It was a great idea. A long
Media
time.
Nation.
Yes, I think he had a very good idea.
The bad news is it reduces the number of comments exponentially. The good news is you're right. You're less likely to say something vicious if your name's attached.
And Tom from San Diego says he's noticed that bad reviews tend to correlate with places with bad customer service. They feel there's no way to complain at the restaurant, so they do it publicly.
Well, that is a semi-legitimate reason.
877-301-8097. Let's go to Dave in Rhode Island. What do you think, Dave?
Hello, Dave.
Hey, guys. Long-time, erstwhile caller.
Thank you.
You guys are awesome. I love the show. Former
Thank
restaurant
you.
professional.
Oh.
Managed many restaurants from, clam shacks to white linen tablecloth restaurants.
Great. You're perfect. Yep.
So, the days of social media, it was such a kind of boom and bust for restaurants because, the marketing potential is insane, right? You can reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people for very low dollar. But the flip side of that is that online review. So the question here is, this restaurant is actually fighting back against these online reviews, right? Which I can see because in a lot of cases, as I told your screener, if you don't bring it to somebody's attention while you're at the restaurant, like how are we as professionals supposed to address that problem?
Excellent point.
So, and this is where the kind of anonymity part comes in, right? And this is where I think it might not be such a great idea to fight back online is that restaurant is not anonymous.
Yeah.
Right? Like the user is, restaurant goer 357. So they have a layer of anonymity there that the restaurant just doesn't have. So, as a manager, I would kind of push back against fighting back in that way. But I totally sympathize with the restaurant owner because of the fact I mentioned. If you don't bring it to our attention, we can't solve it in the moment.
Well, can I tell you something, Dave? I may be aberrational, but if I lived in upstate New York, I think that's where Dragon Lee is.
Yes, it is.
I would go there because of the fact that the restaurant was savaged, and he chose to fight back in an attempt to survive. So maybe I'm an outlier, and maybe other people would react differently, but I like the fact that he's not taking it lying down. Dave, thanks for the call. We appreciate you bringing your experience to the table. We got to take a break.
By the way, you should read more of our comments, Jim.
No, I don't. Believe me.
We get some tough
I know they're
ones.
all negative about me.
They're not all negative about you.
Mostly
No,
negative about
they're
me.
not all negative about you.
They're not?
90%, but not all of them. We're talking about the policies with bad Yelp review. The conversation continues in a moment. Stick around listening to Boston Public Radio. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brody and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. In the 12 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. She'll tell us what she's going to do after the Attorney General says she cannot currently audit the legislature. In about 10 minutes, the great Cat Wright is going to sing. She is spectacular. She's spectacular. It's really going to lift your spirits if you need some lifting. Well, we're talking, oh, by the way, just one other thing which has nothing to do with our discussion. I just saw Brad Raffensperger on CNN. Everybody knows who he is, Secretary of State of Georgia. He's the one who Donald Trump called on the phone and said, can't you find me enough votes to overthrow the will of the people of Georgia? He didn't quite put it that way. Did you see there's someone sending fentanyl to election offices around the country? He just says they're going to supply Narcan to every election office to protect these damn workers who have the decency to try to preserve democracy. I mean, how sick is this place? I mean, it's just, in any case, speaking of sick, we're talking about people who really get off on writing horrible reviews. We're mostly focusing on restaurants. You want to know, if you're one of these people, nobody's admitted it, even though that woman Lori said her ex-husband used to do it. And what do you think motivates those people? What do you think about the Dragon Lee restaurant in upstate New York responding, saying things like, just shows how ignorant you actually are, which brings me great joy. 877-301-8097.
Listen to this. A texter says, Hadley from Newport Beach, California, says Webster, like she was a long way away at Westport Lobster in Westport, Mass. They fought back after a negative review. They ran a raffle for all customers that came to their defense, and somebody got a lobster dinner. Isn't that a clever idea?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, we're getting people that saying that we're terrible to be talking about this. They're complaining about the topic. Sensational conversation, which BPR is unfortunately spending way too much time addressing in its segments.
You know what my response to that is?
What?
That shows how ignorant you actually are. Quoting my best friends at Dragon Lee Restaurant.
Okay, try harder. BPR should be the gold standard.
Shut
what do you say
up.
to that?
Come on. What is that? We're trying to defend small businesses.
Just want you to know
and say
here,
don't
Jim,
be too negative.
What we're getting over the transom here. Let's go to Diane in Fairhaven. Hi, Diane.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
First of all, so many thoughts. Love the first-time callers. Marjorie, you've had those chow mein sandwiches maybe in Fall River. I know I have.
Did you ever have one?
Oh, when I was a kid. What was it? The Mark Hugh. They had chow mein sandwiches. Mark Hugh. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can buy that kit at the grocery stores in the yellow box. However, okay, those are my thoughts. And regarding the criticisms online, I come from a small community, and I love to support our local businesses.
Great.
Good.
If I have a problem at a restaurant, I talk to management, and I give them what I call constructive suggestions, not criticism. And then I have a very small Facebook community. 53 people are my friends. If I have to know you personally and be able to trust you in my house if I'm not home.
That's great.
So I post to my friends my experience, but in a good way, saying I'm sure other people have had different experiences, and what are your thoughts on this particular restaurant? So I don't trash them. I do what I can to support them.
You know, Diane, we know you through your calls. I am not surprised by any of that because that's the kind of good soul that you've always been. Diane, thanks for a great call.
Thank you for the
We
call,
appreciate
Diane. Here's Rachel from Northborough. I work for a place that still gets bad reviews, but mostly it's because the owner, he really is an a-hole.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I'm not, if someone really is gratuitously unkind and treats you like crap, and it's like, it's like a regular thing, then it's a different kind of...
And here's another one who runs a restaurant. It says people are so irresponsible with their Yelp reviews. They said, great service, great meal, great ambiance, couldn't find a parking space. 1-star review.
You ever written a bad review for anything?
I'm sure I have. I don't
you ever written
remember.
a good review for anything?
I don't usually do it one way or the other. You know what I mean? It's very time consuming.
I
Because I don't want to spend my time figuring out how to do a review. But many people that run restaurants or work in them say people complain to get free stuff. Free drinks, free dessert, free meals. They get the dinner comp. They make a big stink to get their dinner comped.
Oh.
Yeah. Devin from Framingham.
Well, by the way, if you read those, which I do, and you apparently don't, if someone has a good faith, non-vicious criticism, often the owner of the restaurant will write back online and apologize and say, call us and we'll try to make you whole or some such thing. You know what I mean?
Listen to this. This is from Aiden in Vermont. I own an e-commerce confectionery company. I'm not sure what that is, but in any case, he says, awful customers often leave bad reviews in an attempt to get something for free. We don't budge. If the review is especially vicious and anonymous, I will publish the buyer's name, address, and phone number in response. 90% of the time, they're so mortified that they delete the review. So there's a way to get even, I guess.
Devin in Framingham, welcome to the show. Hi.
Good morning. I'm a second-time caller.
Thank you for that.
Listener.
Thank you a lot.
I grew up in the restaurant business and hospitality, and now I'm in the wine industry. And I saw many restaurant reviewers who were very good writers. For instance, Ruth Reichel for the New York Times.
Oh, yes.
I think she went off to write her own book, so she's highly successful. But she could really make or break a restaurant in Lower Fairfield County, Connecticut. And I watched my friends who owned restaurants, and I was working with them as a purveyor of wine, and they would really hope for just like 2 stars from her, and that would be enough. And they invested their whole, family's time and money and efforts and expertise. And then in the wine business, you've got wine writers who are equally good writers, like Janice Robinson, who writes her decanter. And these are beautiful writers. And I noticed that they're very careful about not being deliberately negative, but to accentuate the positive. But I think overall, my real comment is that overall, these people subsist on doing thorough reviews, not just to give 1 or 2 stars, not just to give 95 points on a wine, but to dial a little bit deeper into what the winery or the restaurant is doing that's unique. And I think if you flip that coin over, I think the above average person that dines out, that drinks wine while they're cooking, and oops, some of it got in soup, and then you pick another wine to go with dinner, they had the impetus to research a little bit more beyond the review that's given.
Well, yeah, that's a great call. Again, Devin, thank you very much. That seems to me to be the fair and responsible way.
A few years ago, Corby Cummer took me out when he was doing restaurant reviews.
He did?
And we went out, And
Where'd you go? He never took me out.
Oh, what was the Ken Oranger's place up there? It's the hotel down the street. What's it called? Uni, yeah. And there were 6 of us, and
Uni's fabulous.
People ordered, several different things, and Corby was tasting them, and the other people tasting them.
Why wasn't I invited?
I don't know, Jim. They didn't invite you. I'm sorry.
Well, that's another thing. I'm afraid of negative review.
But in any case, he was really serious about it. It was a very, very thorough, and nobody knew who he was. And he had gone there several times. So, and remember we did the story about the guy from the Washington Post that came on our show.
Tom
and
Sitzman.
By mistake, somebody tweeted out his picture.
Well, we didn't tweet it out. We almost
tweeted out his picture, which would have blown his cover because he would go in, so no one knew who he was, to restaurants all around Washington. He's another great restaurant reviewer.
Well, we're not talking
seriously
about former reviewers, even though some of the callers are. Do you remember? I just looked it up. Do you remember it was 7 years ago when Nestor Ramos, who's now at the New York Times, who was a great writer for the Boston Globe, trashed the Union Oyster House?
Oh, that's
as
right.
a tourist trap. And the Union Oyster House really got into it with
They
him.
did.
That was a good one. But we're not talking about people who paid for a living. We're talking about average, angry people who decide to do these things sort of to get off in some way. Or I don't even know what it is. Justin and Newman, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi. Yes, I didn't do it to get off, but I did it because I thought it was well-deserved.
What happened?
Now, I work in Newton, so I called the restaurant ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it would be ready when I got there.
Yeah.
And nobody was at the restaurant. I was the only one there.
Yeah, that's a
problem. I went, I paid for it, I sat at the table, and the person asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating my dinner."
Yeah.
And he said, "You can't eat it because you ordered on the phone."
Huh.
I said, "There's nobody here." He said, "That's not the point. The policy is you can't eat if you order over the phone." I said, "I come here once a week, every week." I said, "I'm never going to come here for the rest of my life." And I haven't been back in 10 years. And I gave him a 0.
Oh,
well, that's a really sad story, Justin. Especially a restaurant you like. That's very sad.
That's a tough one.
I don't think I'd go back either, by the way. How about that restaurant threw me and Jared out a couple of weeks ago?
Why don't you run a review
Justin,
about that,
thanks
Jim?
for the call.
Why don't you
I haven't
about
named
that?
the restaurant.
No, you haven't named the restaurant.
I'm too embarrassed. Time's up, you three. See ya.
Yeah, I know. Well, we had been there for a long time.
No, we hadn't.
Oh, let's see if we can fit anybody. Do we have any more time to fit anybody else?
Not really.
No, we don't. Okay.
Why don't you wrap this up, Marjorie? What's your takeaway
I'll wrap this up
from
by
this thing?
saying that there's something about us that makes us go online and be vicious to each other, whether it's about restaurants, or it's about Airbnbs, or it's about stories in newspapers, or it's about radio shows like ours. There's a vicious streak running through America, Jim.
You know, I
Sad
just
state of
realized
affairs.
I actually did something at the start of this topic, which I never do, and said where you can't blame this on Trump. But then I realized, you know what I realized I read in the beginning? The negative so-called revenge reviews are on the rise. They've tripled since 2020, according to the National Customer Rage Survey. That could be attributed to our good friend Donald Trump.
Customer Rage Survey.
Let me tell you something. If I could ever have started a business, I would have started the National Customer Rage Survey. I really missed my chance.
Yeah, it can kind of capture the whole.
Can we do
your whole
something
spirit,
fun
Jim.
now? Can we
Yes,
just
we're going
get
to do something
Cat Wright
great.
out here?
We're going to do
Let's do
something
that.
great.
Okay.
Coming up, it is time for Live Music Friday, and this week we've got a real treat. We're going to be joined by singer-songwriter Cat Wright ahead of a show tonight at City Winery in Boston. Wait till you'll hear this gorgeous music. There next, you're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browning and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. I think at 12:30 or sometime in the 12 o'clock hour, State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, who just got some bad news from the Attorney General about her desire to audit the legislature, is going to join us. She's going to talk about her ballot campaign, which she hopes will get her to the promised land. But first, it's time for Live Music Friday. Our next guest, by the way, just texted us a photograph from when she was here in 2015. And unlike now,
2016.
2016, I actually do not look like I was exhumed to come on the show, which is a really positive thing. She is singer-songwriter Cat Wright. She's been compared to people like Bonnie Raitt, Amy Winehouse. I would compare her to Cat Wright, frankly. Aww. She is fabulous. She's been on tour all over the country. She has a show tonight, 7 p.m. at the Great City Winery, Boston. Marjorie's going. I'm going to try to go. Tomorrow she's at the Drake in Amherst, Massachusetts. Dennis on the Cape later this month. Cat, it is great to see you again. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
Well, you know, mostly I saw that picture of 2016. I thought, that was just like 7 years ago. I'm horrified. Things go so quickly. But that was, of course, before the pandemic. Now it's post the pandemic, mostly. But you had a rough go in between, I would think. What was that like in your business?
It was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. It was hard to know how to make plans for the future and what to do in the meantime and in which direction to focus our energy. And we made the best of it.
What was the best? What'd you do?
Well, I got together almost every day with my dear friends Bob Wagner and Josh Weinstein, who are performing with me today, and we worked on our harmonies. We sang a lot, and we wrote a lot, and we made a couple acoustic EPs in our studio, so we hunkered down and tried to hone our craft.
Were you nervous at any point that you weren't going to come out the other side?
Totally.
I mean in terms of your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were at a really crucial moment for us. We had been, working really hard, pushing really hard for 10 years, and some really great stuff had just started to happen, and then the wind got taken out of our sails. So it was a scary moment.
Well, let me tell you, we heard you this morning, the wind is back in your sails.
That's
I
right.
should say. Big thing. Kat, I wasn't quite clear how to describe what you're currently doing. I think last time you were here, you were with a pretty big soul band. Am I not right about that?
Correct.
Okay, now you're part of an acoustic trio. You're leading that. But then I also read you're performing with Vermont Symphony, which I assume is like a huge kind of thing. So what are you doing exactly?
I'm doing anything, everything, and all of it.
And why are you choosing this acoustic thing right now?
It's just a beautiful reflection of sort of where we're at and how we decided to dig in and how we felt during the pandemic. We used to be, like you mentioned, a larger band before the pandemic, and that was always pretty unmanageable financially, and we struggled with, making that happen. And then the pandemic came and knocked us all sort of off of our axis, and we thought, how can we keep doing this but do it better and do it smaller and do it sort of deeper? So that's kind of what we did and where we are, and it feels very authentic to us. It feels very tight, and it feels very intimate, which feels very appropriate for the world that we find ourselves in.
We're talking to Kat Wright, who's going to be at the City Winery with her two colleagues tonight, City Winery Boston at 7. We'll tell you how to get tickets in a minute.
You also do, and certainly have been touring all across Vermont. And I was, having lived for a little while in Burlington, I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I was so distraught about Montpelier. I thought, you think of places where you kind of are immune from climate.
I know.
And then Montpelier gets flooded.
Badly.
Yeah.
And the second one in the last decade, that was so catastrophic. And we thought that Vermont was a bit immune to all of this crazy climate stuff too. We're not on the coast and we have a beautiful climate up there, but it's changing quickly, and nowhere feels quite insulated from any of America or the world's problems anymore.
But you're doing a great thing. I was just going to mention the great thing. You're pushing for a kind of more climate-friendly concerts.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We're part of a couple initiatives to just let venues know that we don't want to use plastic stuff, that we want to use reusable crap whenever we can, less packaging. And so we just try to, push the venues that we work with to lean in that direction and let them know that that's how we'd like to be.
And what kind of reaction do you get? Are they doing it?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. A lot of people are, don't have the budget or the staff to sort of make those changes, and some people are really happy.
Are there other performers who are doing what you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a whole bunch of folks that
Is there like a collaborative kind of thing, or everybody's out on their own?
The thing that we're involved in was an initiative that was part of a zero waste festival that we did in Vermont last summer, and the name of the org is escaping me, but it's an initiative that they approach artists and say, hey, will you push this agenda with us? And we're like, for sure.
Now, what would you think of somebody who was a host of yours at a particular radio show who worked really hard to hide every plastic bottle she brought to work for fear that you were going to out her on the radio show?
I said, I got my plastic water bottle,
What's this over here, Marjorie?
That's my plastic, my plastic fruit cup.
No.
I'm trying to disguise it in my hydro flask here, but it's hard.
It's really hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, we just have to cut corners where we can, do our best.
But I can see where if you're at concerts, using kegs is one really great thing, and using recyclable cups is one really great thing. They aren't lined with the plastics, which
they're
cause
finally
a problem.
making those red Solo cups out of aluminum that I'm seeing now,
Really?
which is super cool.
I don't like having metal touch my mouth. Actually, that's impressive. I don't like metal touch.
Really?
I just realized.
Concern.
You live in Vermont?
I do.
Yeah, Bill McKibben's with us once a month.
Yeah. Oh my God, I
And,
love him.
Not only we love him because he knows everything, but he usually is a little more optimistic than we are about whether or not the planet's going to burn in the next 2 weeks.
A lot of the scientists are more optimistic than us
Are
common
you?
folk. Optimistic?
No?
Unfortunately not.
I didn't think so.
Did you see the carbon capture guy that was in the paper
I
today
did,
over at
actually.
MIT? He's got one of those new carbon capture plants, but I don't know. It's going to put the carbon in the concrete and the ground. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That sweet.
I want you to sing. We both want you to sing like soon. So we'll talk for one more second, then you'll come back and talk a little bit more. I don't remember what I was doing yesterday, but for some reason, I remember that when we met you, when we were talking to you, one of the things we did talk about, I'm quite sure, was how tough it was for women in your industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's now X number, 6-7 years later. How tough is it for women in your industry?
It's still tough. There's still not nearly as many of us as there are men, fronting bands and writing, and it's really challenging. People treat you different. I mean, it's age old, but I think it's getting better a little bit. There's a little more awareness about it, but I'm still a minority in the field for sure.
What are you singing?
Today we're going to sing 2 songs of ours. The first one is called Reminder, and the second one is called Tell Me, and they're both songs that will be on a record that we're working on right now in Vermont that will be out next year, and that we also put out acoustic versions of during the pandemic.
Okay, so Reminder, I'm sorry.
Give us a little thing about the bugs and the caterpillars so people. Explain a little bit before.
Yeah, the first song is about healing, and it uses the metaphor of a butterfly to talk about the kind of transformation that we can all do basically whenever we need to. It's called Reminder, in case you forget that you can always just take all your wisdom with you and leave all the crap behind.
Great. Do you want to gently put your headset down before you go sing
Yes,
and then come back? And again, Kat's performing right now with Bob Wagner on guitar, Josh Weinstein on bass. And while she's walking over there, do you want to give the website for the City Winery so that if people want to get tickets tonight to join you and whoops, did I get it wrong? Oh, it is sold out. So wait a second. So come to the
Tonight
Drake and
is sold
Amherst.
out.
It's sold
Okay.
out.
Okay.
Well, that's both good news
Is
and
the
bad
Drake and
news,
Amherst
Kat,
sold
if you know
out
what
too?
I mean.
Well, then forget about that.
Drake is not sold out tomorrow in Amherst, and then we're also going to be on the Cape in Dennis at Cape Cinnamon later this month.
Okay, did you hear that? I don't think you could hear that. The Drake in Amherst is not sold out tomorrow night. It's not that far away. And she and these guys are going to be in Dennis. Just Google it and check it out.
And here, if you want to get the whole scoop, you go to catwright.com. That's KATWRIGHT, catwright.com, which after you hear the song, you're going to want to do.
See if we can screw anything else up. But in the interim, here she is with her partners.
Well, it hurts to be a butterfly, baby. You gotta step into your cocoon and let yourself die. You gotta fold your hands and let it all turn to liquid. You gotta let go of all your fears if you wanna fly. And anybody who hurt you, they can't hurt you anymore. And if you need a reminder, just knock on my door. Well, it's wild to metamorphosize, baby. You gotta make peace with the past and weave your own room. To be born anew, nobody can do it for you. The only way to relief is to let yourself grieve the old you. The only way to transmute is to make yourself face the true blue. And anybody who hurt you, they can't hurt you anymore. And if you need a reminder, just knock on my door. Yeah, the body keeps the score, my love. It all gets written on our core, but also inside you, a map unfolds, and you were made for to walk this road. And you have all that you need to get home. And anybody who hurt you, they can't hurt you anymore. And if you need a reminder, just knock on my door. And if you need a reminder, just knock on my door.
Fabulous. That was
That
fabulous.
was Cat Wright, the
Reminder.
show, which is sold out. So why am I mentioning
Wow.
it, I guess, but I'll say it anyway. It's going to be tonight at the City Winery in Boston. Another show tomorrow at the Drake. The Drake is sold out too?
No.
No, the Drake is not sold out. Okay, so if you hurry up, you might be able to get tickets to go see Cat Wright at the Drake in Amherst tomorrow night, and that is Cat, KATWRIGHT.com. Say again to the guys in the band.
This is Bob Wagner on
Yeah.
the guitar and Josh Weinstein on
Let's
the
hear
bass.
it for them.
My longtime collaborators, best friends.
Who wrote that?
The three of us wrote that.
That was
one.
beautiful.
The
That was
harmonies
really,
are absolutely
really
working on the harmonies
beautiful.
really worked.
That's what
Let
we
me tell you.
did. Thank you.
So, we talk to a lot of musicians and artists of all kinds here, and the one thing they all have in common is they say how even much more important what they do, what you do, in horrible times like these, when the world's blowing up, the United States is, you're nodding in agreement. You buy that, obviously.
Yeah, big time. Music
Why?
is medicine.
What does it do for people?
You know what? It's a lot to bear on our nervous systems, all the news that we have access to, and a song can be like this little magic carpet that you get on, and it just takes you 5 minutes down the road. And if you're in a bad place, sometimes all you need is just help getting 5 minutes down the road, and it just makes a big difference. And then you can just string songs together and just, kind of find your way. And there's a big thing that happens when you hear music that feels like it tells your story, or it resonates with you in a neuroscience way, and it makes your brain grow. When you feel like a song is speaking to you, there's actually a lot of cool neuroscience happening there, and it's making your amygdala quiet, and it's making you feel like you belong in the world again.
You almost sing when you're talking. Do you know that? You do. I mean, you do. You really do.
You mentioned when you talked to one of our producers that you can feel sort of the tension when you come out, and it's harder to get people to get out, to go to. And what is that about? Is that about the bad news, or about pandemic still lingering in people's minds, or not enough money?
All of the above. All the above. Everything. It's this modern moment that's so, it's the economy, it's just culture changing right before our very eyes. And when you have something like a pandemic, it accelerates that. And I think a lot of people change their relationship to going out and spending money. And it's just we're in a different post-pandemic world, big time.
So tell us about the CD. You started telling us before you sang that it's coming out in 2024. It's got Reminder and Take Me With You, which is the thing you're going to sing in a minute.
We're actually going to sing Tell Me next, but it's probably going to have Take Me With You on it as well. And it's going to have some versions of the acoustic stuff that we did during the pandemic, and then some brand new songs that no one's ever heard.
Do you call these albums or CDs? What do you call these things?
Oh, I call them albums, I guess.
You do?
Yeah, but all the cool kids, have CDs.
That's right.
They do. All the cool kids have CD players in their cars, because, the new cars, they don't have CD players. It's pretty lame.
You know what's really sad, actually? That you're here at 11:30. I just thought, Jamie just mentioned this. Diana DiZoglio, the state auditor, who you don't know, sings and sings. And
she's
my
good.
God, if we could have the two of you.
I bet we would be
done a duet.
You'll have to introduce us.
By the way, this thing, Imagine Zero, is that the name of the
Imagine Zero, thank you.
Yeah, well, one of our
Imagine
colleagues.
Zero.
An aspiring zero waste and zero carbon emissions music festival is the thing.
Yeah, and that's what we signed on to, and that's what we sort of harass all of our promoters and venues with. It's
Now, can I ask you one more thing?
And where people can get your music in general?
Spotify, and on our website.
Okay.
One thing that may sound unconnected to your music, but when I'm looking at you, I just can't stop. Do you have any idea where you can get some good chocolate these days? Do you have any ideas?
I think that there's this burgeoning craft chocolate movement happening on the Cape.
What's the name of the thing?
It's hard to say.
What's the name of the thing?
Chequesset chocolate is my favorite chocolate
the only
in the
problem
whole world.
is, and I don't want to.
From
I
Cape
hear the
Cod.
guy's a little bit of an a-hole who runs it. Is there?
I heard everyone there is an a-hole. I heard the whole crew.
That enables them to make much better chocolate, though,
Well,
Jim.
that's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're going to be at the Seaport too, as part of this snow thing that's starting today and all that sort of stuff. You guys are fabulous. Tell us a little bit about the song you're about to perform.
The next song we're going to do is called Tell Me, and it's a song about feeling overwhelmed about the state of the world and needing a hug.
Oh, good.
It's just about needing a hug. It's about reaching out for the ones that you love and just feeling all your feelings.
Did just three of you write that too?
We did.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Cat Wright, joining again. You want to go back and join your
Let's do it.
mates? You got to take
Yes,
your thing
I would.
off there. Bob Wagner on guitar, Josh Weinstein on bass. The album's coming out next year. And what's the website again for Cat, Marjorie?
Catwright.com. It's KATWRIGHT.
And don't bother trying to get tickets to the City Winery. It's sold out. Drake and Amherst is not sold out. Go there tomorrow. And then Dennis, something's happening in Dennis. You aware of that? Did you know that?
Cape Cinema, we're playing.
At the Cape Cinema.
Cape Cinema on the 26th
Well, that's pretty. 26th of November. Thank you very much.
Early show.
And this thing's called Tell Me, correct?
This is called Tell Me.
Cat Wright, tell me.
been speaking and listening to
That
Cat
was
Wright with Bob
Wagner.
Thank you. Wagner on the guitar and Josh Weinstein on bass. Thank
Easy
you
for you
so
to
much.
say.
That was wonderful.
You guys were great.
There's a
Thank you
sold-out
so
show
much.
tonight at the City Winery in Boston, but if you hurry, you can still get tickets up at Amherst at the Drake. For more information, go to catwright.com. That's KATWRIGHT, catwright.com. Thank you so much for coming in.
Dennis, November 26th.
Dennis, November 26th. After the noon news, we're going to talk to GBH's Callie Crossy. She's going to tell us what's up this afternoon at the Culture Show and about Jill Stein entering as a presidential candidate on the Green Party yet again. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
For me, it's just a big thrill to be able to open up an environment that had been so inaccessible to the public. And what we really want to do is to set an example over there that can be replicated elsewhere.
He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. In a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by State Auditor Diana DiZoglio about her effort to
audit the legislature.
Yeah, audit, check out the legislature, find out about their all the stuff going on up there. And on Tuesday here at the BPL, we're going to be joined by the Attorney General. She's going to Zoom in at 11 from 12:30 to 1:30. Michelle Wu, the Mayor of Boston, will be with us taking our questions and your questions. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. Joining us now at the desk is GBH's Kelly Crossley. Kelly, of course, is the host of Under the Radar with Kelly Crossley. You can catch that Sunday nights right here on 89.7 at 6. You can also hear her Kelly commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. And today is episode 2 of GBH's brand new Culture Show, which she co-hosts. It airs every Friday in November at 2 and starting in December every day at 2. Congratulations on round 1. It was great, Kelly.
It was good, wasn't it?
It was great.
It was a lot of fun.
Great.
Yeah,
I was saying,
enjoyed it.
I was saying a lot of it's a lot of fun, but Callie disabused me of that notion when she told me there's going to be one depressing topic. But overall, it's a cathartic and upbeat experience. But this is not a cathartic and upbeat experience. When I'm going to talk about Jill Stein, who's announcing a third-party run for president yet again.
Yet again.
She ran 2012, 2016. Some people think she hurt Hillary Clinton. I'm not sure as a Green Party candidate if she realizes that if she helps Donald Trump, he's a climate change denier. So I'm not sure what her agenda is. She's running again. Joe Manchin, of course, the guy who tried his best to thwart everything Joe Biden did as a Democrat in West Virginia. He says he's not running again, but he may be touring the country. And I'm suspicious about what he's touring the country about.
Well, apparently he's talking with this group, No Labels. People may have heard about it. It's an organization that's trying to, they want to have people, they would like to have to break down the partisanship and to have someone represent them from, either established party, but really to be about the business of really no labels. Let's just get to the issues and the policies that most people feel we hold in common. And that was Joe Manchin's retirement comment, that there's a lot more commonality in our views than not. And that's what I'm going to go check it out as I go around. Now, the problem with No Labels, if in fact he were serious about jumping in at this point, is that they only have 12 slots on the ballots right now across the country, and they can't apparently run a 50-state campaign because the other places say in order for you to you can't hold a space, you have to have a candidate. So if you don't have a candidate, we're not holding a space. The 12 that on which they do have ballot space, they will allow them to hold space. So that doesn't seem like it's possible. Here's the other thing. I'm told that from a political standpoint, he was going to have a hard row to hoe to win going around. So,
I mean, back home in West Virginia,
exactly.
right?
Democrats would have to spend a lot of money.
Right. So hence he was going to, this allows him to step down. Raising money to run for president is not a cheap affair. So I don't understand how he would think that would be easier.
Before we move to Jill Stein, though, one thing, I don't know if you guys mentioned this because looking at my notes, my apologies if I'm repeating it. His departure virtually guarantees a Republican senator from West Virginia. Trump won the state by like 30 points. He was the only Democrat who was able to get through. That means that if everything stayed the same, the Senate is 50-50, which means whoever is elected president his vice president would be the tiebreaker, just like Kamala Harris has been for the last 3 years, which means if everything stays the same except West Virginia and Donald Trump is elected president of the United States, whoever the Republican is, his vice president would break a tie and the Republicans control the Senate.
Right.
So the implications, despite your criticism of him for trying to thwart Biden, which I think is fair, the implications of him not running is actually pretty huge for the Democratic Party.
Very huge.
Yeah.
Yes. But I can't. Does he think he has a national platform? I mean, I'm just confused.
Here he is, by the way. Can we hear him?
Yeah,
Let's hear him a little bit in his own words, talking about just what Callie and Marjorie were talking about. Here's Manchin.
I've made one of the toughest decisions of my life and decided that I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate. But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together.
Did you read, by the way, the bus that he's going to be traveling the country in is powered by coal? Did you know that they put little pieces of...
The thing that drives me nuts about him is I think middle America is interested in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And did he drag Biden through the ringer on any effort to get infrastructure through? It was really difficult. And plus, I can't get over the fact that his daughter, I know it's not him, it's his daughter.
No, I think it's fair.
But how much did she raise the price
She
of
raised the
EpiPens
price
from?
of EpiPens to $600. I think it was like a tenfold increase or
for
something.
children who need those in case they have some kind of reaction to peanuts or whatever. Really, he gives me a bad feeling.
Can I before we turn to Jill Stein, I want to amend something you said. Some people think. I looked this up this morning. The number of votes she got in 2016 in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all 3 states, were all larger than the margin by which Hillary Clinton lost those 3 states. Had she won those 3 states, she would have been president of the United States. So I think it's fairly safe to say that Jill Stein, I don't think she's upset about this, helped elect Donald Trump in 2016. And the Green Party does have a place on the ballot, unlike this no labels thing,
The Green Party does, and there's a lot of people that are upset that Biden hasn't done enough for the climate stuff. We have
hasn't done enough.
Well, you hear this quite a bit, especially from younger people. Why don't you read this text, Jim?
I don't
Jill
have it in
Stein.
front of me.
You don't?
No. So you read it.
It's not a very nice one.
Well, then
about Jill Stein.
don't read it.
Yeah. Basically, they think that she should disappear. They talk about her cozy photo with Vladimir Putin and Michael Flynn.
Well, she was at the table with them at dinner in 2015.
And,
she was.
They think she should not be running.
Okay, remind me. I'm sorry, I don't know this. Cornel West is not running on the Green ticket?
No,
I thought
he left. He was a Green Party, and then he decided to run as an independent, which realistically means he's not going to be on many ballots.
Okay.
Of all the independent, there is RFK Jr. is trying to get on the ballot. There is
Getting
Cornel West.
Big numbers in polls.
Yeah, well, because people are so disgusted with the other candidates.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I don't know about Manchin. I mean, I think he probably would have did himself a favor by exiting. He didn't do the party a favor, but he did himself a favor by exiting so he wouldn't lose. And then he's now trying to figure out, well, where does he go? He's never presented, to me, maybe I'm wrong, he's never presented himself as a kind of a statesman person who could exit this and then be tapped to, think about, have deep thoughts on some of these issues. It just never came across as that. He seemed very narrow among his other issues, so I'm not quite sure what he does. I mean, some friend will probably appoint him to something.
By the way, the other person who was generally reviled by hardcore Democrats over the last several years is Kristen Sinema, who also left the Democratic Party to become an independent. And there was an internal Republican poll that was released yesterday, which shows her coming in a distant third to the Democrat Gallegos, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Carrie Lake, who's a close second, unfortunately, out there in Arizona. And her third. Can I say one? I don't want to just try. Marjorie knows this story, and I've told her on the air. First time I met Jill Stein was in 1990. I was leading a ballot campaign against what would have been the largest budget cut on the ballot from Barbara Anderson, Citizens for Limited Taxation, in the history of the country as a percentage of the budget. This woman walks in my office one day who I'd never met. She had organized a rap group in Dorchester, and they had done this song called No, No, No on Question 3 with her playing the guitar, and it was so fabulous that we did paid commercials with it. So
we can thank you for creating Jill Stein, Jim.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, she was helpful to our campaign, which we happened to win. So there are two sides to her. I have to say, and we're going to invite her on, obviously. I think it's a pretty selfish endeavor and a dangerous endeavor.
I wish you would just. I'm curious about a lot of perennial candidates. I mean, I really actually don't know what they get out of it. I mean, it's their right to do.
Attention.
No, I don't know. Is it? I just don't know. I'm puzzled because there's a lot of time and energy and money.
Well,
somebody else's
how
money.
about Cornel West, who's a pretty principled character, by the way?
Well, he's not perennial. He's never run before. I'm talking
Has
about.
he not run before?
Not to my knowledge.
He's a
Maybe he
perennial
hasn't.
critic, let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, he is that.
He
Well, there's
dumped all
plenty of
over
those.
Obama
Yeah.
when Obama was running. That really bothered me.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of those. But I'm saying for people who have put themselves in position to run, that's a lot of money and a lot of time. And I'm just trying to understand why.
Well, as soon as we figure it out, we'll give you a call.
Well,
We have your cell phone.
once upon a time, people were hysterical about presidential races.
What do you mean?
Well, I think your candidate won, your candidate lost. There wasn't this chasm between them on a lot of issues. I mean, the Republicans were basically lower taxes, smaller government, more socially conservative, kind of hawkish.
Oh, I wonder what happened.
Well, we know what happened.
I wonder what happened
and the Democrats,
in 2015.
So you didn't think the world was ending if the person that you wanted to win lost.
Because there was not an insurrectionist running for president of the United States.
And a climate change denier and someone who's going to clamp down on a lot of people's individual rights. I think he's going to twist his way out of his abortion problems.
Climate change denier. How about denying the reality of an election?
Exactly.
I mean, I can't get past that.
That's a very good point.
Nonetheless, he's winning in 5 of the, or 5 of 7
5 of the 6 key states.
I don't get that.
Anyway, I'm going to calm down now, Marjorie. Calm down.
No, you don't have to calm
Let's
down.
calm down and move on. This is another horrible story, though. It's Veterans Day today.
Oh, my goodness.
I think it's the 248th, would it be, birthday of the Marines, because they started right before the country was even a country. The story from the New York Times about
this is horrific.
What has happened to these very young Marines after firing multiple rounds during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. What happened?
Well, this is an extremely detailed story, which I encourage other people to read because I kept just turning the page going, what? So these were young men who were sent to bombard the Islamic State in 2016 and 2017. And the strategy by the big people was, we're not going to send a lot of folks on the ground because we're going to make sure that we have very few casualties. So what we're going to do is just from afar, just bomb from the air. But the ground was very important.
Yeah,
so,
I made a mistake. It's not Iraq and Afghanistan. It was Syria.
Right.
Yeah.
So the ground was very important, and so there are these guys in these troops, and there were some in special units particularly, and that's all they did all day was just bomb. So at the end of it, the general goal was met. Not a lot of casualties. Everybody considered that a victory. Then these guys started having these weird symptoms. It kind of reminded me of what you've heard from people about the Havana symptoms. Mm-hmm. They had hallucinations. They had all kinds of physical issues, like big physical issues, and it just would not go away. Now, like serious hallucinations, like seeing ghosts and whatever. They, of course, went to all the officials and said something is wrong, help. They did battery of tests, nothing. I'm going to speed through what I want people to read because it's really important. After much going around and some of them killing themselves, and one horrible incident, this guy was driven so crazy he went and killed somebody else he didn't even know.
Yeah.
Because it just was out of control. I found out that there in the brain are very tiny microscopic, I don't even know, tinier than microscopic changes in the brain from the reaction that your body takes in when you are firing these weapons. They do a great job of detailing it, but it's very powerful. It goes all through your body, through all your systems, and it doesn't show up initially on what would be traditional tests. And it took them years and years to figure out what is happening, and they finally were able to see this tiny, just the beginning of what was a problem for them, and that's what it is. Now, okay, it's taken this long to identify it, and they're now having to get people to try to figure out how to treat it, and get the Army to acknowledge, or the Army, the Navy, all the military people, that it happened and that it's real. So it just goes on and on with more horror of this story. But meanwhile, these guys, the ones that have managed to live, are some of them homeless. Some of them, it is horrible.
And the Marines dishonorably discharged some of
Yes,
these
because
soldiers so that they were not able to get their veterans benefits.
That's right.
And the Pentagon has not exactly reacted swiftly to this New York Times story talks about silence from the Pentagon. Now, this was in the paper last Sunday, so maybe they have improved in their response since then, but it's really a
I just want to read this
disgrace.
sentence in this piece. Traumatic brain injuries can have profound effects on parts of the body that are nowhere near the skull because the damage can cause communication with other organs to malfunction.
Yeah.
So, they're just screwed.
And it was
You know.
repeating these, firing endless rounds, these cannon blasts, they said, that were strong enough to hurl a 100-pound round 15 miles. And this constant repetition of these cannon blasts said it sent shockwaves right through their entire bodies, through their bones, through their lungs, through their heads.
I'm glad they know what it is, but good grief.
Yeah.
By the way, they tested this on mice when they finally started getting a clue about maybe this is it. And it looked like right after they did the little test with the mice, nothing. And then the next day, they just went nutty. So it's very real. They're now aware of it and know that it's real. There's apparently very little help for those guys that lived through this, and their families have been traumatized beyond belief. But I hope now that the ones who have managed to survive thus far can get some help and at least get some benefits because they were dishonorably discharged and they through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
Well, can I say, a veteran who we've had on the show quite a few times is Seth Moulton, the congressman from the North Shore. And Congressman Moulton was one of the critical people in getting that suicide hotline, that 988 number, which I think just had its 1-year anniversary. And if I remember correctly, he said that he can say with great confidence it saved thousands of lives. It's 988. People should know that. But you know what it highlights and is this empty, it's sort of like thoughts and prayers from Congress after 18 people are murdered. It's sort of thank you for your service kind of thing. If you mean it, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
If you mean it as a glib thing to just move on and then do nothing for people who've put themselves at great risk.
When the rubber hits the road.
Exactly. It is just, as both of you said, it's another horrible story about people who've chosen to make great sacrifice, and
we should
sacrifice
note, too,
is even so much greater.
That in this piece, a critical study was done at UMass.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That peel back some of the layers of this. I mean, there's so many layers.
And by the way, I should also say we're commemorating, observing Veterans Day today, but the actual holiday day is tomorrow.
Right. And by the way, the reason we should say, one of the reasons you mentioned the anniversary of the Marines is because one of our dear friends across the street, one of the great door guys, Mike, at the Lennox served. And he is a fabulous human being. And happy anniversary to him.
I'm saving the story for him.
So can we talk about by the way, what's the title of the story? You said people should read it.
A Secret War, Strange New Wounds, and Silence from the Pentagon. New York Times, November 5th.
Okay.
Dave Phillips and Matthew Callahan.
Great. It is a wonderful piece and really important. I'm glad you said it. So some good news to sort of change gears here. The writers settled, as we know, and now the actors have settled. And here's a little sound from Fran Drescher, who I think most people know. She's the president of SAG. After she was on Good Morning America explaining what changes needed to be addressed in the final deal. Here she is.
With the advent of streaming and also AI, artificial intelligence, it became a whole new conversation, and it begged a completely rewritten contract.
First of all, I love her voice.
Yeah.
Secondly, apparently they did make pretty decent strides on the AI front.
We will not know the details. I think today they start voting, and then maybe they allegedly later on today are going to release some of the details of the contract. AI was the big stickler. I think what's important here to remember is that how long it was, and the fact that in the negotiations were not representatives toward the end. These were the big guys themselves. The Bob Igers of ABC, who run everything, was at the table. And I'm thinking that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't gone forward. So.
Well, they were out for a long time. And the reason we wanted to bring that up, both to congratulate them, it also gives us an opportunity to talk about another union struggle and a great and funny comment from a guy who usually is not a riot. That'd be President Joe Biden. Here is President Biden. There was he's addressing the United Auto Workers in Illinois yesterday at a plant. And there's a loud thud in the background. You'll hear what he has to say about it right now.
American workers are ready to work harder than anybody else, but they just need to be given a shot, a fair shot and a fair wage. That's not too much to ask. You okay? I want the press to know that wasn't me.
It's actually a pretty good line from Joe Biden there, kind of thing. So can we discuss, you are, I don't know if you're aware, you're from the South. Do you know that?
I am.
You didn't know that?
Very much so.
We've had mayonnaise discussions with you in the past.
Yes.
And apparently there is a celebration of the most famous Southern mayonnaise, which would be called Duke's, somewhere in South Carolina. First, much more important than the mayonnaise trail, which apparently stops at 20 places in South Carolina. Tell us about Duke's.
Yeah, what's so great about it?
It's very tasty and homemade. It's just, and it goes so well with so many Southern dishes. I don't know how to explain it otherwise.
Are your deviled eggs? Wait, are your deviled eggs, your award-winning deviled eggs, made with Duke's?
I never say what's in my deviled eggs.
Excuse
people
me.
have tried and tried.
Sorry.
Stop trying. I'm not going to tell you.
So what's your go-to mayonnaise? Can you get Duke's up here, or do you have to go home and get it?
Well, you can order it. You
can order it.
You can order anything.
But do you have a
everywhere.
go-to mayonnaise right now?
No, not particularly.
No.
But I do like Duke's very well. I mean, it's good. I mean, what we're talking about it is because they're having an unofficial mayo guide to Greenville with 20 stops along the route.
I'd be there.
Me too, with snacks like Jones Oyster Company's smoked Carolina fish dip, Bobby's Barbecue's tangy coleslaw. I bet you that is really good. Chicken sandwiches, scoundrel burger, all kinds of stuff, because mayo is in a lot of this.
All made with Duke's,
Yes,
I should say,
exactly.
every single
That's right.
stop.
So this is kind of interesting. I love somebody or a place taking advantage of all of their touch points.
I'm with you. We could use one of those here. So, Callie Crossley, now you have to tell us about two things. What are you
Yes.
doing Sunday?
Yes.
And then you can tell us what you're doing in 93 minutes.
On Sunday on Under the Radar, a sobering piece. We wanted to sit down with folks who have long been in the trenches for peace with Israel and Palestine, peace organizations, volunteer peace organizations, young people, and a very interesting group called Combatants for Peace. They were both soldiers on either side. And both have come together as to say, this does not work. Violence does not work. And just ask the question, who are you and how do you keep going through this? And what has been the response in this very fraught situation? And it's really powerful testimony from all of them. And I will tell you, they're even more committed, not less. And it's very tough conversations, as you can imagine. I mean, the dialogue is important and they're having the dialogue, but it's very tough. They believe this really, the only way out is not, as one of them put it, is not some, fairy tale, but this has to be a reality or nothing will ever change. So that's the first big segment. And the next segment, very excited about too, I have a series that I do every year called The Genius Next Door, which takes a look at the local awardees of the MacArthur Genius Grant recipients. And so we have the first one on Sunday. There are 4 from our area this year. We're interviewing 3 of them. One of them did not want to talk to us. That's all right. And so the first one is a cellular and molecular biologist whose work focuses on DNA. He's young. This is so exciting. I just love talking to them because they're just doing their job. They're just working. They're shocked that they get picked for this huge
What do they get,
award.
like $600,000 or something to do whatever they want with?
$800,000.
Wow. Pretty good.
Yes.
You don't apply, by the way. You just get it.
Yeah,
and you don't.
who does? Is
It's
it
a
your
secret nominate. No.
Oh,
secret nominators in various areas, probably in your field. I mean, that's why they don't have a clue.
So they might say your boss or a colleague might say this person is doing extraordinary work,
you
and they
wouldn't
might
be your boss or your colleague. They
wouldn't.
literally have secret nominators
They
in
do.
fields around that. Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not like
But
a
how do
job
they
thing.
know about them?
Because they have the secret nominators who are who spend time looking
there,
around in the
Marjorie.
field, looking in the field, really to pay attention to the up and comers and what they're doing. You know?
Okay, so what are you doing today at 2 o'clock with Edgar V. Herrick III
Well,
and Jared Bowen?
it's obvious. We're going to start off with the Grammy nominations. We have to talk about that.
11 o'clock today they came out, right?
Yeah, they just came out. So we'll take a look at that. We're doing a little, it's more than a little bit of touch point on deaccession that museums are doing as they sell pieces. And that's a controversial thing that a lot of people are aware of but don't understand how widespread it's become and what the issues are. and a host of other things.
Barbara Streisand's
Of course
book.
we're doing Bryce.
Wesley Morris, who
Yeah.
used to be at the Boston
Yeah.
Globe, and had a great podcast. I don't know if they're back doing the
Still
podcast.
processing. It comes on because both of them are so busy, and I
Yeah,
love that. I
it's
love that
occasional.
process. Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
He's particularly, I love him.
Yes.
And the piece about Barbara Streisand, I mean, it's a 900-page book, but it does sound like it could be a page turner.
Oh, of course it's Barbara Streisand. Wake up, people. She
Okay.
had a lot to say.
She had a lot to say.
and
I know.
and good stuff to say. So very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kelly, we'll be listening at 2.
Okay.
Congratulations again. The first show was fabulous.
Thank you.
See you at 2 o'clock.
All
Kelly
righty.
Crossley.
Thank you very much. You've been speaking with Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here, 89.7 at 6 o'clock. You can also hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. She's co-host as well of GBH's Culture Show, which airs right after us. That's 2 o'clock today on 89.7 GBH. Callie, thanks a lot. After a short break, a bump in the road for State Auditor Diana DiZoglio in her quest to audit the legislature. She's here to explain what is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Thank you very
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Tuesday at 11, the Attorney General, that's relevant to the discussion we're about to have, will Zoom in at 11, and 12:30 to 1:30 live at the library will be Michelle Wu for Ask the Mayor. Joining us now at the library live is State Auditor Diana DiZoglio. Now, if you're unfamiliar, which I'm sure you're not, the auditor not only looms large in the world of Massachusetts politics, she's also quite the singer-songwriter. I think she performed this song for the first time ever right here on Boston Public Radio, then at the Democratic Convention. It's called My Voice.
You can censor my speech, but you won't silence my voice. Say it's all out of reach. Deny the people a choice. You can try to tear down every dream of brighter days that we have. Say this is all you get, then hope we just forget, but we're smarter than that. This is the time for the people to be heard. This is the time.
Okay, welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Auditor Diana DiZoglio. Nice to see you, Auditor.
You do have a great
you
voice.
can
And you wrote the
sing.
song, right? Didn't you write it like in a half an hour or something like that?
Yeah, and I've joked that, Governor Haley plays basketball, and that's great, but I got cut from the basketball team in high school, so I sing.
Well, there you go. Move your mic up about an inch, Auditor.
Sure, is this good,
Perfect.
everyone?
That's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's
Thank
very
you.
good. That's very good. So, Diana DiZoglio, you are trying to audit the state legislature. The Attorney General has now said you don't have a legal authority to do that. So, what do you think? What do you think about what she said?
Yeah, look, the Attorney General has a right to her opinions, but it is just that. It is her opinion as an elected official. Andrea Campbell and I ran side by side during the last election cycle, and we were both lucky enough to have earned your support. Thank you very much. But we are both elected officials. We have differences of opinion sometimes, and this is one of those times where, unfortunately, we do disagree. Our office has conducted at least 117 audits of the state legislature since its inception in 1849. We believe firmly in the auditor's office that the state legislature should be held to the same standards as every other state entity. It's our tax dollars that are being spent. It is the people's house, not the politician's house. And we're fighting like hell to make sure that we can get access to how our tax dollars are spent and what's going on behind closed doors. So while I am disappointed in the Attorney General's position in supporting the position of legislative leaders in this disagreement, it is her decision to make. So what we are doing right now is we are turning all of our focus, at least I am in my personal capacity, to this ballot question that we have an opportunity to pass. We have a very good chance of passing this ballot question, friends, but only if we get it on the ballot. We need 75,000 signatures by November 22nd. That's the day before Thanksgiving. And I know I would be very thankful to earn your support in helping to get that on the ballot.
Can we get back to the ballot question in a second? I want to stay with what Andrea Campbell said. And as I mentioned a minute ago, she'll be here at 11 o'clock, so we'll talk to her more about why she said what she said, that you didn't have a legal right to audit the legislature. In all the stories, you're quoted, Diana DiZoglio, saying, well, despite what the Attorney General said, we will continue with the ballot campaign. But in addition, you also continue auditing the legislature. What does that mean? She said you don't have a legal right to do it, so what are you doing?
Yeah, so we're continuing to follow government audit standards set by the Government Accountability Office at the federal level. They dictate how we conduct our audits. They make sure that, state auditors across the nation are doing things according to their standard of excellence. And we committed to the voters that we were going to produce an audit report for you, so we're going to do just that. Unfortunately, because legislative leaders are refusing to comply and giving us access to documents that the auditors in our office have requested, that audit report may unfortunately be incomplete. And of course, our office is going to be making all of those things public that we have requested during the course of the auditing period, so that folks know what we requested, what documents may or may not have been denied, so that we can get those documents out to you as quickly as possible.
Give a sense to people of what you have been denied by the Speaker and the Senate President that you think the public is entitled to know about. Give us some examples.
Yeah, sure. So we are conducting a pretty comprehensive review. This hasn't been done in many years. But one of the most salient examples, especially here with both of you who know this issue well, this issue of these non-disclosure agreements, right? My office is actually conducting an audit of the use of our taxpayer dollars to fund non-disclosure agreements that are able to be used, friends, in state government to cover up harassment, discrimination, abuse, and even potential corruption across our state agencies, entities, and departments. As a legislator, I did serve in the legislature for 10 years, 6 years as a state rep, 4 years as a state senator. I had filed legislation to ban the abuse of these taxpayer-funded non-disclosure agreements so that our tax dollars aren't being used to cover up potential misdeeds, especially when it pertains to Beacon Hill and those being used by our politicians. Right now, all of the other state entities that we are auditing for this particular issue currently are complying with that audit, and we are making some headway. But we do know that in the House of Representatives alone, at least 33 non-disclosure agreements have been used to cover up something. We just don't know what.
How do you know how many there are?
When I actually broke my non-disclosure agreement that I was required to sign when I was fired for being sexually harassed in the House of Representatives many years ago. I was a younger woman in my 20s. I'm now 40 now. It's exciting times, everyone. When I was a younger woman in my 20s, I had experienced some sexual harassment in the House of Representatives. And they had required on my way out the door that before I could leave with my 6-week severance package, not some big settlement, not some big lawsuit, there was nothing involved like that. Just to get my severance package, I was required to sign away my right to talk about what happened on Beacon Hill just to get my severance package. When I broke that non-disclosure agreement years later as a state representative after going back and getting elected to that same House of Representatives to serve, we ended up actually uncovering during that time that there were 33 in total that were reported by the House of Representatives, but we don't know what they were used for. We don't know how much money was spent on them, and there's a lot of questions around instances like that, for example.
Well, that's the thing that, you can help me out here. If you're required to sign a non-disclosure agreement in some instances to get money, they'll settle with you for whatever it is. So we don't know, I don't think, if taxpayer money has been used for $50,000, for $200,000.
And to cover up what?
Exactly. So that's what I don't understand, how they can keep what they've done with taxpayers' money secret.
Well, I will tell you, when I actually had broken the non-disclosure agreement during my time in the House of Representatives, the reason why I had to break it, Jim and Marjorie, was because it was actually being said by the former, not current, but by the former Speaker of the House, that they actually weren't using non-disclosure agreements. And I was a state rep at the time, and I kept having conversations with our leadership team and saying, we know that's not true because some people have them. So obviously there's a discrepancy between what you're telling the general public and what the actual reality is, right? So I had to break that NDA in order to let folks know that we were using those agreements in the House, that they were actually being used in cases like harassment cases. And, we had talked about that not because I needed to move on. I was already elected by that time. I was okay. It was because we were debating sexual harassment policies at the time in the House of Representatives. And I thought that, we needed to have a robust discussion around the fact that these were being used, money was being spent, we didn't know how it was being spent. And, I was hopeful then that we were going to make changes based on that new information, as I remain hopeful now. That information will help us.
I want to get to your ballot question in a second, but just stay on the NDAs for one second. Forget your desire to audit the legislature comprehensively. What is the response when you say to the legislature, obviously we're not going to reveal identities, we'll make sure that no one is outed who doesn't want to be outed, and obviously that can be done, I assume in 90% of the cases. What is the argument against telling the public, here's how much we spent, and here was the subject matter, without giving away something again that outs somebody? What is an argument against that when I'm paying for it? I don't get it.
Yeah, and point of clarification to your first point, Jim, I think it's important when we talk about not outing people who don't want to be outed, we're not referring to political elected officials, we're referring to potential victims who may have been victims of harassment, discrimination, abuse, or some sort of inappropriate activity, who may not want their names included in these reports.
Right, yeah.
And of course we would never include those names. It's victim confidentiality.
So what do they say? Why should we not know
But
this?
as far as the rationale for not releasing this information, there is none. The only rationale has been regarding this audit, which includes a look at those non-disclosure agreements, is that the legislature sets its own rules. And that because they set their own rules, they are going to decide what they would like to release and not release. And that is completely unacceptable when it has to do with our tax dollars, not their private dollars.
Okay, let's move on to the ballot.
Hold on, before we move on to the ballot question, every time I hear non-disclosure agreement, I always think back to the disgrace of the Catholic Church, where what they did for years, and I am not saying that these were certainly children up at the State House or...
well, you don't know what they were.
Well, I assume they weren't children. Maybe usually if you're working at the State House, you're an adult. But in any case, they used non-disclosure agreements in the Catholic Church for decades to cover up horrible, horrible things, raping of children, and so that people would push them away with money, and then that was the end of the case, and it was hidden. So that's, to me, a very scary thing, that things would be hidden at the State House by elected officials who are paid by the taxpayers.
Well, speaking of hidden, I want to do one more contextual thing, which we've mentioned many times long before you were the auditor. The context for this whole transparency thing that you're involved in, Auditor DiZoglio, is to remind the public there's one state in America in which every branch of government claims exemption from public record laws. The executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. One state only, and we're living in that state. So transparency is not our thing here, and this would attempt to do it. Now your ballot campaign. Most recent thing I read is you have 50,000 signatures. I used to do ballot campaigns. You need 74,574. Realistically speaking, since tons are always disqualified because someone signed twice, someone got the wrong address, you probably need 90 or 95,000 signatures. You're nodding in agreement. You had 50 a week ago. The deadline is, 12 days away. I would say you're in trouble. Am I wrong?
No.
I'm wrong or I'm right?
Sorry, yes, you are wrong.
Okay, tell me why.
Sorry.
Tell me why.
We actually, and thank you, because, a lot of y'all might not know, but Jim actually ran some incredible ballot campaigns back in the day. I've heard a lot about them. Okay?
I've only mentioned it about 100 times.
I'd say more like 1,000 times.
Okay, go ahead. But go ahead.
From fellow folks on the campaign trail that they're helping with this referendum, right? So, yes, so 50,000 was, the estimate for what, we could guarantee that we knew we had to be able to turn in. Since that time, we have been getting signatures in droves. We have had people that have been collecting this entire time that have been saying, hey, auditor, I'm going to collect 1,000 signatures on this campaign's behalf with my local town committee, or, in my neighborhood, or handing it out to some friends. And what's happening right now, Jim, is that we are actually getting those signatures back. I just had somebody contact me this week and say, hey, Diana, we got about 700 signatures that we turned in, and 600 of them were certified by our local town clerk, and we're sending them in ASAP. So right now what we're doing is we're going out and we're gathering all of those. I do like to make sure that we give smaller estimates so as not to inflate the potential.
So you think you're going to make it?
I do think we're going to make it, but you're right. We are running short on time. We're up against the deadline, but we are getting there. We're within striking distance.
If people want to help,
we're going to do this.
If people want to help, where do they go to do that?
DianaForMA.com/ballot question, or you could just visit my website and click on the ballot button. You can find out all sorts of ways to help there. We need all the help we can get, and we can do this, friends.
Can you explain something, and maybe you're the wrong one to ask, but maybe you're not. We'll clearly ask Attorney General Campbell. In her 17-page decision, I think, saying you don't have the legal right, and we should explain this. While she declared there was no legal right today, and she gets the final word, your proposal is a law. If it is to pass, that becomes the law that you can audit the legislature. That's the way ballot. However, and this is the however I wanted to ask you about, she says in her opinion, even if the ballot question, which she certified was okay to be in the ballot, were to pass, and I'm paraphrasing what she said, you'll correct me, it still doesn't mean you have unlimited ability to audit everything you choose in the legislature. What does she mean, and how nervous does that make you, even if you win the thing?
Well, it doesn't make me nervous at all, Jim. I mean, look, half the battle is just outlasting the opposition, and I don't plan on going anywhere, so I will be here for this for the long haul. If we need to face additional hurdles set up by the state legislative leadership or set up through, the AG's potential future decisions, we're going to have to find a way to jump over those hurdles, and we will do so at that time.
Do you know what she's talking about?
I do not know what the Attorney General is speaking about in this particular case. We did have a very brief conversation before her decision was released, and I have not had an opportunity to go fully through that with my staff. But what I can say is this. Look, friends, our Attorney General did certify this ballot question in the face of a disagreement from Senate leadership's general counsel, who at the time that the Attorney General's office was certifying this to go on the ballot said that this was not in the proper form, that the question should have been filed as a constitutional amendment because it would raise constitutional issues in conducting an audit of the legislative department. At that time, the Attorney General's office had a decision of whether or not to allow this to proceed to the ballot or to stop it there and agree with Senate counsel to maybe prevent 75,000 signatures from getting gathered, a lot of people spending a lot of hours, weeks and weeks and weeks of their time, lots of money raised for this initiative. That was the opportunity to cite constitutional concerns in the AG's office. And the AG's office did not side with Senate counsel at the time and allowed it to proceed. So
but the only, in all fairness, the only constitutional concern that's before the Attorney General at that time is whether or not it complies with Article whatever, 42 or 48, not the details of the ballot question, right?
So that's why I think it's a great conversation to have with the AG, because we have heard her say that. But I hope that, after certifying this and us getting this on the ballot, working hard to get it passed, it becoming statute, that the AG would help to uphold the statute that we vote for here in Massachusetts.
Can I ask you another question? About last thing for me, at least in the ballot question, then I have one more thing. I don't know about Marjorie. Last time you spoke to us, you said you got a check from Ernie Bach Jr., who we know well, who obviously is a Republican-leaning kind of guy. I don't know if he's a Republican. The chair of the Republican Party is also supporting this. Amy Carnevale? Is Amy first? Yes. You got raucous applause, from what I understand, at the Democratic State Convention when you took the stage, not just because you sang, but because a lot of people like what you're doing. Do any of the reps and senators have the courage to publicly support this thing, or they're too scared of the Senate President and the Speaker?
Yeah, we do have some support from legislators at the State House. Look, I need to say this. A lot of our senators and reps feel like they're being held hostage in this particular circumstance, and I understand that because I was a former state representative and a former senator. I was a little bit more of a maverick when I was serving in there. Fine, that was my style, that's my personality. But a lot of our reps and senators are trying to make sure that they can actually continue to get funding for their district, that they can get their bills passed, that they're not going to be, denied the opportunity to fight for their highest priority for their district.
Have any of them been told, to your knowledge, that if they participate in this campaign, they'll suffer as a result of it?
Well, we know how retaliation works at the State House. It was Senator Markey that had his desk put in the hallway after a disagreement
when he was a state rep.
with the former speaker. So it has not changed much, my friends, unfortunately.
But you didn't answer my question. Do you know of a Democrat in the legislature who has specifically been told by either the Speaker or the Senate President that if he or she supports your effort, that they or their constituents will suffer?
That's what pretty much most are hearing is the case. And we can't attribute that to any one person, but most are hearing, stay away from it. Most reps and senators are scared to even sign the petition to get this on the ballot, fearing that their name will show up and somebody will somehow go through all those signatures and see their name on there. So, there is a lot of fear right now about this, and it is unfortunate. But look, hey, that's why we're taking this right to the people. We need you. We need everybody across the Commonwealth to step up. And when we hear conversations about, how dare you work with the Republicans on this initiative, I've said, look, this is actually something that originated with the Democratic state auditor. We have been partnering with anybody and everybody who's willing to actually participate in this conversation. We've had robust support from my friends in the Democratic Party. The chairs of our local Democratic city and town committees, a lot of them have been leading the effort for this, collecting signatures. A lot of Democratic city and town committees have endorsed this ballot initiative. And yes, the Republicans have been endorsing it too. I just actually took a photo yesterday with a former chair of the Green Rainbow Party who also is in support of this. So it's not even just Democrat, Republican, it's Green Rainbow, it's unenrolled, it's everybody in between. And you know what, Jim? As we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and by the way, happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. Thank you so much, and happy birthday, Marines. As we come together in this holiday season, and many of us celebrate Thanksgiving, this is, for all the political divisiveness that's going on, friends, this is something that most of us can agree on. I think that we all have that aunt or that uncle or that cousin or that grandfather, or whoever it is, right, that you're thinking you're going to go to that holiday party and they are going to have something to say about something political. It's going to be something about the presidential politics going on. It's going to be something that is controversial, and to just expect that. Well, guess what? This is something that most people can agree on. There's only a handful of folks in the state that think this shouldn't happen. It's nonpartisan. It is uniting people in our community. It's bringing us together for the common good, for a good government that allows all of our voices to be heard, regardless of our family background, our bank balance, or our zip code. It's a really exciting time in Massachusetts. We have a really great opportunity.
Wait a second. Before you ask question, how many people in the audience support the right of the auditor, would like the auditor to have a right to audit the legislature?
There you go.
How many opposed?
Very impressive.
Put your hands down. How many opposed?
I think I saw Speaker Mariano back there.
There's not one hand that has gone up opposed.
Yeah.
So whatever that's worth.
So if people want to get involved, and tell us again how they do it.
You can go to my website. It's diana4ma.com. You can do an internet search if you forget the website. It's the Auditor DiZoglio Diana.
Okay.
And on my website, there's a button. This is really grassroots. I'm leading the charge over here on this effort alongside of some great advocates. But click the ballot button question.
Okay.
And there you'll find out how to get involved. There are multiple ways to get involved, and somebody will get right back to you as soon as possible.
You want to sing something?
Yeah. What would you like me to sing?
What would you? Well, sing like 15 seconds or something to send. We had Kat right here before. She was beautiful.
All right.
So give us 15 seconds, whatever moves you. This is the Auditor of the Commonwealth, Diana DeZoglio. Join me in welcoming Diana DeZoglio as she sings whatever the hell she's going to sing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Should have warmed up, Jim.
Well, I think you'll be fine. Go ahead.
I'll sing the song that I wrote.
Beautiful. Do it.
I'll just sing a portion of it.
We're ready.
All right. Some people think that holding on to power makes them strong. But it's in our neighborhoods, that's where the power should belong. We have a chance to change some of the crazy ways people have been oppressed. So we can't miss this moment, we won't miss this chance. Gonna give it our best. This is the time for the people to be heard. This is the time for our faith to be restored. This is the time for us to rise up in unity, to say we won't back down. We're gonna stand our ground till we see the victory.
Diana DeZoglio.
That was great.
Boy, you really have.
That was great. That was
something.
Massachusetts State Auditor Diana DeZoglio, who's trying to audit the legislature. Good luck between now and your deadline. Coming up, feeling blue on a Friday. Well, you're in for a treat. The folks behind the re-envisioned Blue Man Group will be with us in just a second. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. As we said, Tuesday of next week, we're back at the library. The Attorney General will zoom in, and obviously we'll get her to respond to some of the things that the auditor had to say. And then 12:30 to 1:30 next Tuesday, Michelle Wu will join us live in person at the library. So the Blue Man Group started in quirky East Village theaters, rose to worldwide commercial fame, coming to Boston, I think, in '95. This year, the Blue Men are revealing new acts and a brand new finale, plus new original music, and their wildly fun show. Marjorie and I went a couple of days ago, and other than being terrified that we were to get called upon, it was spectacular. Joining us now is longtime Blue Man Jason McGlynn. Jason, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And music director and drummer from the show, Randy Wooden. Great to see you guys.
Great
and
to
go
see
to
you.
blueman.com to get tickets. Welcome.
So tell us, Randy, how long have you been doing this?
I've been working for Blue Men since 2010.
So you're a newbie, relatively.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Yeah, my journey started here. I went to school in Boston and auditioned around 2009, and I got into the company in 2010.
And how about you, Jason?
I started in 2002.
So you've been doing it for a long time.
2002?
For a long time, yes.
And you didn't do it just here. You've done it
No.
in tons of... Tell us some of the places you've done this.
Well, everybody initially begins in New York. That's where I learned the show, and you do shows there for a little while. And then I had been living in Chicago and went to undergrad there. And so I was really fortunate enough, because back in those days, you didn't have a lot of say where you went. You know, they asked you, and that was like a nice gesture. They could send you wherever they wanted. But fortunately, I was able to go back to Chicago. So I was in Chicago for a while, and then I opened the show in Toronto, and then sort of toured around the States.
Okay.
You know, I assumed almost. I'm sorry, go ahead, Margaret.
I was just going to say, so for people who haven't seen it,
yes,
this is impossible, by the way.
Well, you can give an idea.
This is really
you can give an
impossible.
idea, you know, what it's like. I mean, we all sat there with our little ponchos on that we got to be close enough to the stage, so we get
just in case
we get rained on. But one of you give us a description.
Well, a brief description is you're participating in an experience when you come to a Blue Man show. We try to do themes of connectivity, and we express ourselves through music. The Blue Men don't speak, unlike today.
Yeah.
Music and art really help tell a story.
Jason, if you want to add.
Yeah, one of the ways we talk about it when someone is new, a new performer, is that often, so the audience comes thinking they're seeing a show, and the Blue Men also think that. So the question is that as over the course of the show, how we navigate that space of finding one another, figuring one another out, and connecting.
Can we, by the way, we have a photograph of 3 Blue Men, do we not? So people can get a sense if they haven't seen the show. It's going to come up in a minute. There they are. Are you one of those people, Jason, or you're not?
With the lights,
it's hard to tell.
Well, say yes. Nobody will know. Say yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So,
yes.
How do you get the heads to look like that, please?
How do you get the heads?
Well, I'm working on it on my own.
Yeah.
But I'm bummed.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, it's very good.
But you put something over your head?
We do. We put a bald cap on,
Okay.
and we have in-ear monitors in our ears so that we can get everything lowered a little bit, tailored to what we need to hear, and then you. Yeah.
See, I thought it was painted on. What a dope I am.
It's a
I thought it was painted on.
Have you ever felt clown white makeup?
Yes.
Clown white is very thick. It's very thick. So the blue is in between clown white and over-the-counter makeup.
Okay.
So.
You know, wait. Stay with the blue for a minute. What do either of you know? We read about the origin of Blue Man in the East Village years ago, and the Astor whatever, which is where I used to work, right next door, many, many years ago. Why blue rather than Green Man group? Do either of you know? You know, Jason?
I have some. I mean, I have a sense. Certainly, there are associations with colors, and green typically. You think of sort of alien life form, but also the thing about blue is that there's an artist named Yves Klein, and he patented a color blue, and that the blue that Blue Man uses is an attempt to get as close to that Klein blue as possible.
Well, let me tell you, you guys look like alien life forms with the blue.
You do.
It is really incredible.
But there was one thing. I'm not giving too much away here, but the marshmallow segment when there were marshmallows being thrown quite a ways across the stage, and one Blue Man group would throw, and the other Blue Man group would catch the marshmallow in their mouth. That was pretty hard. I mean, you could have been like Red Sox pitchers basically, and missed the marshmallow landings.
Yeah. I mean, are you a catcher or a tosser?
Both. So I at this point play all 3. But when
you do?
Yeah. But when I first started, I was the one that threw. But now we play each iteration.
But how many times do they miss?
Well, then, see, that's the catch. Is that I mean, rarely. I'll say if I may. But it's that speaks to also what's happening with the audience in between the Blue Men is that we're working together in that. So we're making micro adjustments, between each throw, night to night. That sort of.
And that is one of the highlights of the show, because we do have a live 3-piece band. And
a great band.
That's a great moment for the Blue Men and the band to work together to help create that tension and release in the story.
Randy Wood, is that your real voice, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, just to be clear.
Fake voice?
Randy, so first of all, the band is fabulous. It's like a Kiss kind of experience, sort of. Yeah, okay. And for those who don't know, the thing I really love, the percussion that you guys do, the Blue Men do, is spectacular. So you have to be a Blue Man, you have to be an actor. I know we have sticks, thank you for bringing. Blue Man official, Blue Man group, the perfect pair of sticks, which neither of us would know how to use. You have to be an actor, you have to be sort of like an acrobat kind of thing. You have to be very athletic.
Yes.
You need to play drums or some sort of drums, and there's something
Yes.
else I'm forgetting. So which of those were you able to do in 2002 when you joined the troupe?
I was primarily an actor, so I'd gone to the theater school at DePaul in Chicago, and at that time the roles were a little bit more delineated in what they did. One was predominantly played the music, and so I was sort of angling for the one that didn't play as much music. And in the hopes that they wouldn't notice. And then once I was hired, I had like time and means to improve my drumming. So
now we have a question if either of you can do any drumming with the drumsticks. Can either of you do any drumming?
Aren't you a drummer? Are you a
I
drummer?
am a drummer,
So
yeah.
drum the damn thing, will you? I mean,
Okay.
do it. I
Here
mean,
we
what
go.
are you doubting
Here's
about?
two.
Right on the
Okay.
thing.
All right.
You can ruin the whole thing. I don't care.
listen, good intentions. Hey, this is what happens when you bring gifts.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Well, I mean, Blue Man it's really based in primal rhythms. The music of Blue Man is actually kind of its own style. So it's based on a lot of single strokes, a lot of unisons to create very heavy tom-oriented rhythms, as you might have noticed in the show. Plus, we also have a lot of custom instruments with the PVCs.
Are you stalling, or what are you doing here? Do something, will you?
What should we play?
Pretty good there.
So that was a little bit of the Blue Man rhythm mixed with a little showboating. So.
Yeah, and the three of you are near each other when you do that lots of times in unison, and it's spectacular.
Well, they're upstairs. The musicians are up in the rafters, kind of thing.
But the Blue Men are in the front, do some percussion as well on the front. So I often wondered too, and maybe you can't answer this, but when you go around the audience picking people out to perform on the stage. Now I wondered, because one of the people the night we were there was an elderly woman. She looked to be like at least in her mid-70s.
Yeah.
And you brought her up to the stand. She was a real person or a plant?
No, those are real people.
She's a real person.
That's a
okay.
real person.
Then you put handcuffs on her.
You presented her with a pair of handcuffs, which I thought was a little risque for a grandmother.
We got to hold true to our roots of slightly pushing the envelope.
Yeah. But how do you pick them? Because she was great. She was like the perfect person.
Actually, all three of the people they picked were spectacular. Were you there the night we were there?
I was unfortunately not there.
They were, every one of the audience participants was brilliant and played along. They were incredible. So how do you make the decision?
I mean, I don't want to give too many secrets away, but the idea is that you're looking for someone that, you could sort of see has a little glint in their eyes, playful, but maybe not too much, because we don't want them to sort of take over, as it were. But you're looking for that sweet spot of somebody that feels like they want to say yes, that they're available.
I was so low, slunk down in my seat. I was practically draped under. And then you pick these people, and we're not hyping this thing. They were brilliant, and you guys play with them so perfectly. They get into it. It's such a wonderful piece of this deal.
But you think you're sort of safe if you're in the middle. I was in the middle.
Yeah, I was on the aisle,
that no one is going to come get you if you're on the middle. But you guys walked over the chairs that were in the middle of the theater, and you thought that perhaps someone would stop above you, and then you'd be in big trouble too.
No, I mean, I certainly we definitely never pick people that look like they're not going to have fun.
Yeah.
The idea is to deepen the connection with a single person in that moment, sort of a representative of the collective. We bring them up.
That's the voice of Jason McLean, who is one of the Blue Men. Randy Wooten is the music director and obviously can really play the drums. There's 6 Blue Men at a time, so you can rotate. How does it work?
Yeah, currently there are 6 of us in the city and 3 on stage that particular performance. And yes, we rotate. Not everyone plays all 3 roles, so that dictates some of the scheduling. But yeah, we can. It's an ensemble cast and.
Is this fun? You have to say yes, I know, but be honest as you can be. Is it fun doing the damn thing?
We were just talking about this yesterday.
You were?
Yeah,
what did he say? Don't let him answer. You answer,
We
Randy.
both were just, so grateful and happy to have these jobs, because it's such a great opportunity to perform and play and connect with the community and with each other. It's just a wonderful, wonderful job.
It's remarkable. I mean, doing it this long, you certainly have, iterations. But I want to say that the amazing thing for us is, this community, Boston, New England, that keeps coming out to see the show is amazing. Because after the pandemic, no one was quite sure. And audiences have been coming out in droves, and it's been remarkable. So that kind of post-pandemic experience, it certainly has helped to bear the fruit.
I'm not laughing at you. I just want to be clear. You don't know this, but our producer, Jamie, never has anything better to do than to do AI with me,
right.
whatever we're doing.
There
So
you
can
are.
you post this thing
As a
up
blue
here?
man,
Here's
a blue
me,
man.
allegedly, and unfortunately it looks a lot like me
Yeah.
as a blue man, which would be my dream, but I
Yeah.
don't think I'm doing
Okay.
that anytime soon. Go ahead, Marjorie.
So I also think one of the things that makes a real difference is where you're performing. It's an intimate theater,
Yes, it is.
and you are can be really close to the stage, even if you're one of the last row. This is a small theater.
It's a wonderful space.
Yeah.
It's definitely-
So you like prowl around among the audience at different places, parts of the show, which makes you kind of feel like you're very interactive too, right?
Yes, I mean, when we break, kind of technically breaking the fourth wall, right, the kind of proscenium, the Charles Playhouse does, because I've done the show in all the other cities in the States and a lot of other places, and I do think that it's uniquely situated to house that moment where you're, because it kind of wraps around, it does feel this kind of enveloping where we're kind of in this, so that once we sort of dip in, as it were, it does raise the stakes.
And another, by the way, another big draw that I can't believe neither of you are mentioning is if you want to go to an event and get wrapped in toilet paper before you go home, you get to get wrapped in colored toilet paper.
That's
How
true.
great is that?
Yes.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, you are really wrapped. I mean, that's one of the great moments in the whole thing. But what's also a great moment is before you go go downstairs and have a cocktail
that is great,
to get
actually.
revved up for the show.
Sure.
There's a little, and it's kind of a blue man group decor down there on the first floor, right?
Yeah, the lobby certainly. We have this instrument down there.
And what's great about this refresh is we've transformed the space with new LED screens. So it's a
Tell us about the
brand new-
refresh a little more. We should have asked you earlier. What's new for those who've been there before to lure them back?
We have 7 new pieces in the show. It's almost 50% new content, some reimagined pieces and some new pieces exclusive to Boston in particular.
That's true. There are a handful of pieces that you can only see here. And we worked with this amazing agency to realize the new video content, this company Pretty Damn Sweet. And it's beautiful in that respect, and the music. But the content also, I think, speaks to this moment. Where sort of everyone kind of AI is in the ether, and we are certainly taking our turn to talk about how we're in relationship to that.
Yeah. How long has this been going in Boston? Since when?
Since 95.
95. Wow.
And I read Jason, so you have 2 daughters, is that what it is?
I do.
And I read a piece that when they were in single digits, I don't know how they all are now.
Right.
Tell us about how they felt when they come and see their dad looking as strange as one can, doing these incredibly odd, wonderful things.
Well, I think they're now both in high school, so I've really seen the trajectory of when they were young. And, it was amazing seeing them and when they were little, and then as they got a little bit older and started to get street cred with their friends, because it's a pretty cool job. And then now as they're on their way kind of thinking about college, they're like, but they recently came, and it's amazing. I went to a grad school a few years ago and was thinking about, doing doctoral work, and my older one was like, wait a minute, what am I going to tell people then?
That's right. Dad's a blue man.
So hopefully, thankfully that didn't work out for a lot of reasons.
By the way, for that, the other, it sounds like I'm the PR guy for this, which I guess I sort of am today. We are sitting, I don't know if you could hear, Marjorie, because you were about 6 seats over. My daughter and I were sitting right on the aisle, and there was a guy who had to be 85 years old, who's sitting there with his grandkid. I think it was a girl, I'm not sure, who was about 8. These were the 2 happiest people, separated by maybe 80 years in life. And they were not only happy because the other one was happy, but they both were so into every single move.
That's wonderful.
It was really a beautiful. So do you guys really like
We
it?
have the blue man up there.
We do?
There you are.
That's me? It's the best I've looked in weeks.
You're looking good as a blue man. And that's the other thing. Your eyes look so cool. I mean, you can tell from that picture how there's just this and your expressions.
Well, my favorite part, actually, is not just all the shtick you do, which is great.
Sure.
I love when you guys do these side-eye things at each other, checking in with your fellow blue men to just make sure we're good. I love that.
Yes, we always keep each other in our periphery. We can always see one another, and I think that's the thing that draws people in is the relationship between the blue men and the band, and then with the audience. I think that's one of the reasons it's so interesting across the age span is that.
So is there anything else like this, Randy? I mean, it's so unusual.
To speak to the point of the old and young generations enjoying the show, I had the honor to be on the world tour. I traveled the world for 4 years with
Where'd you
the Blue Man
go?
Group. all over Asia, Europe, New Zealand,
Wow.
South Africa. And just the universal thread of the response to the show, it was so moving to see in countries, because we don't have dialogue in the show, so we can go to countries that might not speak English, and they still have such a reaction to the show. And it was just so rewarding to be a part of that experience and to see those reactions across the world.
And it's permanently running not just in Boston, in a bunch of other American cities, Jason, yes?
Correct. It's in Chicago, Las Vegas, and New York.
That's great. I mean, we really had, that's not my kind of thing. I have to be honest. I go to this because I had to go to it because you guys were coming on. I knew it was, I mean, I'm trying to be honest. I knew I was going to hate it. And I didn't. We bumped into each other in the lobby afterwards, and I said, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I come in as a total cynic, and I actually smiled a little bit.
And it's really funny to see all
Almost
these
got
people.
up and danced.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
sitting
really,
there in their little their clear little
great.
ponchos, you know.
It
And
is
everybody's, every time you think there's something, because you don't want to wear the top on your head the whole time.
Mess up
Makes
your hair.
Too hot. So you could see how people were anticipating what you're going to do, if they should put the hood on, take the hood off, put the hood on, take the hood off. It was very, very funny to watch
there's
that.
something about that that's intentional.
Yeah.
So there's, even within that, it's a piece unto its own. How a person decides, are they going to wear it, are they not going to wear it, are they going to put the hood up, are they not going to put up, that's just fascinating.
Yeah,
Right.
I know. There was a lot of it. You're thinking they know something you don't know. They've been there before, and you better put your hood on because the guy 2 seats in front of you is putting his hood on, so you could anticipate it. But it was a very nice little clear poncho. I took mine home personally, wrapped in toilet
I'm so
paper.
glad to hear that.
as I
So the
was.
last question really for you, Jason, do you actually like marshmallows, or do you, I hate marshmallows. Do you like marshmallows?
No. I mean, not particularly. I wasn't a big fan before, but you just have a relationship with it that ebbs and flows. But I do want to say that before we leave, that this time of year for us is always amazing, because we have a lot of extra shows during the holidays, and people come home to visit family, and we're excited about this refresh going into this time. So we have a lot of extra shows so that people can hopefully come and check us out.
Well, we really had fun.
Yeah.
We really had fun. My kid and I and Mark, we really had a great time.
It's
And
so
thank you
great to hear.
both, and
I
thanks
appreciate
to your colleagues.
I appreciate your honesty in saying that you were kind of like,
That wasn't kind of like. I wasn't kind of at all. It's like, when is this going to be over?
Yeah.
And then I was sad when it was. So it was pretty good.
and we're the poor for less candor in the world, right? I mean, this is excellent.
My pleasure. It's
Yes.
great to see you both.
Thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations.
It was really great.
Yeah, an amazing show. I've been speaking with the Blue Man Group actor Jason McClin and Randy Wooten, the musical director for the Boston Blue Man Group residency. For tickets, very easy. Go to blueman.com. That's blueman.com.
Great Christmas thing. You're right. I'm glad
Yeah,
you
it is a
mentioned
great
it's
Christmas thing. Coming up, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner zooms in on the latest legal trouble facing the former president, Donald Trump. Judge Gertner is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. We're next here on Tuesday, 11 o'clock. Zooming in is the Attorney General. 12 to 3 in person is Mayor Wu for Ask the Mayor. Speaking of zooming in from somewhere in northern Italy is Nancy Gertner, retired federal judge. That's what we hear. Senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a regular BPR contributor. Buongiorno, Judge Gertner. How are you?
Yeah. Thank you. we very much appreciate your zooming in from far away, Judge
Wait a
Gertner.
second, you're not going to ask her what is she doing?
I think she's on the vacation.
What are you doing there? Are we allowed to know?
No, I'm not on vacation.
Oh, you're
No,
not?
I'm not on vacation. There is a residency program that Rockefeller Foundation runs for people who want to writing projects. And I have a book about the men I have sentenced. I've been working on for a long time, so I qualified for this writing project. I'm in a 14th century castle, and the window behind you is a window from an 11th century church. My study is in an 11th century tower. So
wow,
we are honored.
Cool.
And so you're you're having time to work on your book.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Right.
What the hell is she calling us for? That's
I don't know.
Well, that's exactly my point. Goodbye.
Well, we do
Good
have
to see you, Judge.
one or two things, Judge Gertner, before you get back to working on the book. The former president appeared in court this week on this fraud trial, and he was an extraordinary witness. The judge had to interrupt him and chastise him many times. What did you make of this?
Well, there's a difference between a judge trial and a jury trial.
Yep.
So in a judge trial, the judge can be much more flexible about what allows Trump to get away with. Judge Chutkan in the DC obstruction case will not be able to do that, will not want to do that, will be driven crazy. So there was some flexibility. My understanding from the coverage is that in his ramblings, on the one hand, is a core of admitting that, in fact, he knew what was going on his various documents that supported the valuations of his various properties. In other words, he made admissions, which was remarkable. So the noise was one thing, but he actually made admissions.
But it did make me kind of nervous because it was in anticipating if he does ever take the stand in a case with a jury, because it was basically the Donald Trump shtick, which works well with a lot of the people that like Donald Trump, that are supporting Donald Trump. And I was thinking he might be able to, charm is the wrong word, but he might ingratiate the jurors with these kind of mini performances he does.
Well, that's possible. I mean, there's no question about it. But as I said, the difference between Judge Chutkan and Judge Engeron is that, he can sort out the wheat from the chaff, and so he can give Trump some leeway. With a jury sitting there, Judge Chutkan would not be able to do that, would not want to do that. So there's always the chance that Trump can charm the jury, even if he's held, with a tighter leash. But he clearly didn't have to have a tighter leash in the New York courtroom.
By the way, we should say that the likelihood of him taking the stand in a criminal trial where he's the defendant, I assume you'd agree, is somewhere between like 1% and none percent, don't you think?
Right. There's no way where liberty is involved, where he could wind up being imprisoned, where he said so much that it would be inconsistent with what he's saying on the stand. I mean, the New York case was somewhat technical, which is these documents that overstated your income. The question is, did you know that they were going on there? The DC case is much, because it's a criminal case, because the charges are very serious, are really very different. And I can't imagine any lawyer letting him go near the stand, going near the stand.
We're talking to Judge Nancy Gertner. She's allegedly in northern Italy to work on her book. Who knows where the truth lies, but we know she's in northern Italy. We have spoken to you a lot, and when you and Larry Tribe were kind enough to come on together, we talked about this. Larry Tribe is among those, including, what's Judge Ludwig's first name? Michael? Ludwig, who's the darling, used to be the darling of conservatives, agree, and I can't remember if you do too, that the Article 14th Amendment, Section 3, which says you can't hold public office if you've engaged in insurrection or rebellion, would preclude, according to them, and maybe you, Donald Trump from being a candidate for the presidency. There are a whole bunch of states, I think Michigan and Minnesota are among them, where there is litigation on that very issue about whether or not, I don't know if it's proper to say self-enforcing, but without a conviction, without a finding by a tribunal or a court, that the wording of the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, engaged in insurrection or rebellion, in and of itself would disqualify him from the ballot. Can you remind us where you are on this, and if you think there's one chance in a million that any court would say he's barred from running?
Well, the language of the amendment would seem to allow an election official to make a decision that Trump had engaged in an insurrection and therefore was barred. The language allows that. But you're going to need a court to interpret that language, and that's what you're seeing. And the court is going to have to say, is the language alone, so in other words, an election official makes a factual judgment that Trump was involved, or an election official uses the January 6th finding to determine that he's allowed, or is it going to have to be some other kind of proceeding, some other kind of trial? In other words, does it have to be a conviction? I guess what I'm saying is, and what Larry said and what Judge Luddick said, is that the language of the 14th Amendment and its use to Confederate soldiers suggested that there could be a disqualification based on his participation, that you don't need a conviction. But we've never done that before in a contested fashion.
What would you
the
have
answer
done?
is who knows?
What would you have done if it came before you?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Right now, you know, the language says one thing. The question is how it's been applied. I mean, they didn't have to litigate right after the Civil War someone's participation in the on the wrong side of the Civil War. That was clear. He was wearing the wrong uniform. He was getting a military salary. With Trump, there has to be litigation on it. And the litigation is raising all sorts of questions. How do you determine that? Is it a candidate? He can't be a candidate for it, so it can only happen when he's formally a candidate. Trump's lawyers are making the argument that it could only happen, after if he's won, which would be extraordinary and impossible. So a judge has to sort out all of those questions. And if Larry Tribe were in my court, I would do whatever he wanted me to do.
So we're talking to retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Judge Gertner, there's a piece in Politico that talks about how Trump's lawyers want to prevent the prosecutors from mentioning the violence and the chaos of January 6th. But the same piece also says that Jack Smith, the special attorney there, wants to link them both together, to say that all of this campaign to get people to lie about the election and pressure these election officials across the country, they're a piece together. There's no way you could bar talking about the riot on January 6th, is there?
I mean, Jack Smith drafted a very, sort of narrow indictment, which is about obstructing the counting of the electoral votes, about the false elector plot, that this is obstructing a proceeding. And I think that he drafted it that way so that he wouldn't have to necessarily try what happened on January 6th. Now, given the numbers of people who have confessed and the videos that they've amassed, he now knows he can link the false elector plot and the trying to delay the certification process to what was going on January 6th. And indeed, so I think that now he's not claiming that Trump incited the riot. He's not claiming that Trump was the cause of it. He is claiming that Trump's words and actions that day kept it going, and that then led to the delay of the certification process, obstructing the certification process. It's difficult, when you talk about inciting a riot, there's all sorts of First Amendment issues about whether what I said actually caused people to do X or Y. And I don't think that Jack Smith wanted to be in a position where that's what he was charging, inciting a riot or whatever the federal equivalent would be. But he's linking it now as part of a narrative, that this was a conspiracy to put false electors in, that this was a conspiracy to delay the certification process so they could claim that state legislatures would have to vote, which would mean that Trump would win. So I think it's part of the conspiracy narrative, which is what he's doing. the judge is going to have to decide whether to let him do that. I would imagine that some of that would come in, and I would imagine that Trump's lawyers would not succeed in keeping it out.
By the way, that trial starts on March, I think, 24th of next year, at least tentatively scheduled for March 24th. Speaking of that trial and the First Amendment, Carol Rose, who you know well, who's the executive director of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts, told us the other day that the Civil Liberties Union has made a motion to be allowed to file a friend of the court brief, arguing that the gag order imposed by Judge Chutkan in this very case is too broad, and that it therefore violates the First Amendment. And she went out of her way, which is understandable, to say that on scores, if not hundreds of issues, the Civil Liberties Union has actually sued Donald Trump as president. But in this case, they're with him. They think, as I said, that it is too broad. You're a civil libertarian, if there ever was one. Which side are you on in this, Judge Gerdner?
Well, that there should be a gag order, it seems to me, is clear. And the judge spent some time trying to figure out what it ought to be. The case is now before the Court of Appeals, and the question is the scope of it. And I read their brief, and it's very interesting. I mean, so the notion is what comprises targeting the prosecutor? What does that mean? And asking also about, it covers the substance of any witness's testimony. So my prediction here is that the Court of Appeals will probably narrow it, but narrow it in the way that a judge might narrow it, which is, is there essentially a clear and present danger that the things he's saying will interfere, will undermine and interfere with a proceeding? Not targeting whatever that means and not affect a proceeding. I think that Civil Liberties Union and others, intervention here is going to lead to a narrower order, but it's going to do the same thing. It's going to be, if you start attacking the prosecutor, you start attacking the judge, you start attacking witnesses, you're now going to run afoul of this order. But the order has to be more specific because it would, because that is an issue. That's the reason why I think she originally delayed the implementation of the gag order, and the reason why the Court of Appeals had asked for a briefing on the subject.
Talking to Nancy Gertner from some 11th century castle in Italy. So,
Judge Gertner, earlier this week, the Supreme Court heard arguments about whether someone who has been a domestic violence abuser, has beaten someone up, attacked someone in domestic violence, should be able to have guns. I just wanted to say, before we get to the question I was going to ask, I listened to some of the arguments, and I was really stunned. The guy that's caused all this mayhem, attacking a girlfriend, shooting people, random, a dangerous guy, Zaki Rahimi is his name. He had a lawyer that I was stunned was arguing before the Supreme Court because his lawyering seemed not very competent, and I wondered about that.
You listened to the actual oral argument?
Well, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to part of it.
But that's what the commentary is saying. I mean, that essentially he was all over the map. The judges couldn't figure out what the hell he was trying to say. I think that's right.
But I thought you had to be kind of a hot shot before you could get up there and argue a case before the United States Supreme Court. I guess I was wrong.
Well, you apply, you become a member of the Supreme Court bar, you represent someone. Usually people who go before the Supreme Court are part of a somewhat elite group of people who are used to talking to the Supreme Court, but that's not a requirement. It's not necessary. And this guy slipped in. It's a very interesting argument. I mean, it's almost as if they have to find that this guy shouldn't have had a gun, should be disqualified from holding a gun, having a gun. Because otherwise, last year's decision, which affected the right to carry laws in New York, will make them look like fools. In other words, there has to be an exception for someone who's proven himself to be violent,
right,
and carrying guns, and that's why I think they took this case. And it sounds like that's what they're going to do. If they carved out and said that because domestic violence wasn't a crime in the 18th century, therefore it can't disqualify you from having a gun today, that would be an absurd position.
And that's the reasoning of Justice Thomas in the case from last year, that there's got to be an historical precedent.
I think that what they're going to do is they're going to hedge it to the fact that this guy was clearly violent. In other words, it wasn't domestic violence. He was accused he had been convicted in other situations of actually being violent, and that therefore it was appropriate to keep him from having a gun. It's a much more, they'll narrow what they did last year, but it won't be it's sort of sometimes this case is unique, and so they can say, well, you see, we're not as crazy as you think we are, because this guy shouldn't have a gun. But there's a wonderful quote, by the way, from Justice Scalia about the scope of the Second Amendment and raising exactly these kinds of issues. And he says, I'm an originalist, I'm not a fool.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but it does seem just common sense-wise. It's very odd to me that anybody can have an originalist position because women has no rights back when the Constitution was formed. If you were an African American, you didn't have any rights back when the Constitution. So how do they get around that?
Well, Justice Thomas doesn't want either of them to have rights today, so it's perfectly. It's perfect.
But I mean, it is a dilemma, it would seem, to have an originalist stance.
No, it's not a dilemma. I mean, Jim has it exactly right. Thomas doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
Full stop. Thomas doesn't care. So when the Constitution was drafted and the Bill of Rights was drafted, women had no rights. Women were property. Married women had no rights in particular. In the post-Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, women, in fact, reacted because they wanted their freedom and their right to vote, just as African Americans were getting, and they were explicitly kept out of the post-Civil War constitutional amendments. So any originalist interpretation that pivots on what was going on, at that time will surely exclude women and is likely to exclude African Americans in certain situations. No, it's a preposterous position that no other constitutional court would ever indulge in, and no one ever, and it's just a ridiculous position.
Well, speaking of ridiculous position, and Marjorie saying the lawyer was clueless, I want to take the last minute or two talking about the judge who wrote the decision in the federal appellate court below. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think most people, we talk a lot about how important your vote is because whoever's president picks members of the Supreme Court. Hopefully people have gotten that. The president also picks people like Nancy Gertner to be a district court judge. This guy Wilson, I think his name is, who I'm about to describe, to be an appellate court judge. So presidents have huge impact on these appointments where people can serve for decades and decades. This dope, if I may, who is on the appellate court, I think his name is Wilson, I can't find the story. His argument for saying that this domestic abuser was entitled under the Second Amendment to own a weapon, which is why the case went to Supreme Court. His quote in his decision is, and this is a bit of a paraphrase, but the words that I've mentioned are exactly his words. If we're going to rule out somebody who's been found to have been engaged in domestic violence, what's next? A nonconformist? A speeder? I mean, can they be any dumber? I don't know if you know Wilson. Does he believe this, or this is just a convenient way to get to the outcome that he wants, Judge Gertner?
Whether it's partly a convenient way to get to the outcome. It's also, people are auditioning for the Supreme Court. I mean, one of the things that this Supreme Court has enabled is a reevaluation of all precedent, an opening of issues that we never thought were open before. And that leads to judges saying, well, hey, if this is open, everything is open. And we've seen that I've resisted talking about Trump judges in my writing and in our talks, but those who were appointed by Trump and are facing a Supreme Court in which all bets are off, that enables the kind of decision that this guy did. And what's interesting is that even this Supreme Court is saying, this is really different. This guy was dangerous. And dangerous and guns don't mix.
Before you leave, are you eating like 12th century menu items, or what are you doing exactly?
Am I what?
Are you eating like 12th century menu items, or what are you doing?
No, I'm not. I'm missing dinner because I'm on your show right now.
Oh, I'm
Goodbye.
sorry.
Nice to see you, Judge Gertner. We love you.
But thank you very much for starting dinner a little late. Thank you to join us.
Enjoy
have a great
your
time
meal.
over there, Judge. Thank you.
How'd you like to go to, you're a writer, how'd you like to go to a writing retreat in northern Italy in a castle?
I thought I was going to one in Quincy, but that didn't work out either. Nancy Gertner was a retired federal judge, a senior lecturer at the Harvard Law School, and a regular BPR contributor. We're very grateful for her time.
We really appreciate it, Judge.
Okay, we're going from Italy with Judge Gertner to Italian subs right around Boston, because the Boston Globe's great food writer, Deborah First, recently put out her list of the best Italian sandwiches in Greater Boston. Our staff got us a few of them right here at the BPL. We're very excited about it. We're going to open the lines to ask you where you get your Italian subs. What is your favorite place and why? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. Next Tuesday, we're back at the library. The Attorney General zooms in at 11 for a half hour, and the mayor walks in from 12:30 to 1:30. So it's finally time for us to try some Italian sandwiches. You know, the ones where the bread is kind of soft but also crunchy. The cold cuts are high quality and plentiful, and the experience is otherworldly. They smell fabulous. We're inspired by Deborah First in the Globe this week. She wrote a piece, Where to Find the Best Italian Sandwiches Around Boston, from the North End and beyond. Our staff has collected 6 samples for us to taste. Here, an Italian sub from Bob's in Medford, another from Tony's in Roslindale, 3 from the North End, Bricco, Dino's, and Salamaria Italiano.
I just had that.
Butchering. How was it?
Great.
Plus, of course, the best one, or I think we'd all agree the best, and it really is the best, the Jim sandwich from the Newsfeed
Right here at the Newsfeed Cafe.
Let's hear it for the Jim sandwich. Thank you. Thanks for the 3 of you who applauded. Appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is the number. Yeah, by the way, don't just tell us what your favorite Italian, I never called them Italian sandwiches, Italian sub, whatever you want to call it, around. And why is it the best? Is it because it's nearest to you in your neighborhood, is one of the places that Deborah wrote about? Or is it because it's got the freshest cold cuts, the best dressing? And what do you get on it? Italian dressing, peppers and onions, the works, mayo. I think if you say mayo, you're going to be in big trouble. Marjorie and I apologize in advance, at least Marjorie does, for the sound of chewing on air. We'll try to keep it to a minimum. 877-301-8970. What's the first one you had?
I had Solomeria Italian, an Italian specialty
we call
store.
It. Thank
Italiano,
you. So
okay.
describe your experience, please.
Well, it's got a lot of olives in it, and it's got a great flavor to it. I mean, I'm not a food expert, but it tastes pretty good to me.
I knew we were going to hear that.
But I also had the Newsfeed Cafe one, which I've had many times before, the Jim. And they make a great Italian here at the Newsfeed Cafe. I just always called them Italians. What do you want for lunch? I want an Italian. Isn't that what you call them? Do you even say Italian sub?
This is Bob's saying. Is it Bob's? No, it's not. Salamaria Italiano. An Italian. This is going to be a horrible segment.
It's going to be a horrible segment. Okay, here's what some people say.
By the way, it's only $10, which is pretty cheap for a big sandwich kind
I
of
didn't
thing.
know they had prices. Oh, yes, they do. They have prices in the mall.
The fillings taste aged, says Deborah. Distinctive. The proper ratio of shredded lettuce and tomatoes. There's also a mustard thing happening on this. Isn't there a mustard thing?
I think so. I can't tell. I'm not good at this. Diane from South Dartmouth says, Marcucci's or Marzilli's. I used to go to Marzilli's. I had Marzilli's in Fall River. It was absolutely great. The fresh bread was unbelievable.
This is pretty good, though.
Kaylee in Weymouth is very upset because the Italian sub article totally dissed the South Shore. Kaylee, text back and tell us about the great Italians you can get on the South Shore.
You know,
And-
Mike, who we were celebrating before,
Uh-huh.
are you ever an ex-Marine? You're not an ex-Marine. You're a Marine, right, for life.
I think you're a Marine for life, yes.
That's why we said happy anniversary of the Marines. He says Meridian Market has hands down the best. Where's Meridian Market, Jamie? Do you have any idea? He told you? You don't know. No, we don't know. In any case, what's your favorite? Again, and you have to tell us. Eastie, thank you very much. I think that was Zoe. It was Zoe. 877-301-8970. Again, we want detail. Why is the place it could be the price, by the way. What, the size? I like large helpings. What's your favorite?
We have a person from Revere who's saying there's no New Deal from Revere on your list. Then we have to fire the staff.
It's not our list. No,
we have to
it's
fire
Deborah
Deborah first. I'm sorry, Deborah, you're going to have to be fired because you didn't have the right thing. 877-301-8970. Philip from Watertown, what do you think?
What up, Philip?
Hey, guys. So don't argue with me on this. Market Basket.
Oh, I love Market Basket, but really? Go ahead.
He said don't argue.
No, it's good. Don't sleep on it. It's arguably, I would put it up with one of the popular places, too.
And I assume that's because it's
$3.99,
right? It's cheap, right?
Yeah, $4.99 now, but
wow.
Yeah.
I was joking.
Yeah.
So what do you like about it other than the price? Philip, what do you like about it?
All the ingredients are right there. It's same thing, similar setup to like Subway, but everything is fresh, and you get to have like the oil, vinegar. They have everything that the other restaurants have to offer too. So
I love Market Basket, but I'm surprised to hear you say that. But that's actually a great recommendation, I guess. Philip, thank you for your call. We want to thank Ethan, by the way, who's our fabulous intern, who got us 3 of these from the North End. Ethan, thank you. Can't believe you said yes to that assignment, but that's your business, not mine. Let's go to Derek and Woburn. You're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about one of the biggest issues of the day, I think, Italian sandwiches. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, definitely an important issue. So I wanted to throw in Monica's Mercato in the North End.
Yeah.
Been there for a long time, longer than me. But it's a great sandwich. It feeds at least 2 people. Great portions, great bread. The ingredients are awesome, very fresh. Best in the North End.
Derek, don't go away. If you had to choose between perfect bread and good cold cuts, or perfect cold cuts and good bread, which would you choose?
It's both. It's both, and you need the ratio to be there.
Ratio's huge.
Good vinegar and olive oil ratio.
Pretty good.
It's got to have all the ingredients present.
Monica's Americana. Where's it again, Derek?
It's in the North End. I
North
think
End.
it's on Salem Street.
Thank you. Really appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you very much. Did you try Bob's Italian Foods yet in Medford?
Not yet, but I just tried Tony's Market in Rosendale.
Oh, my God.
In addition to offering the best lamb, owner Tony Benedictus trims meat as gracefully as he ballroom dances, and the best lasagna.
Can you try this Bob's Italian Foods? Fabulous.
Okay, you keep talking then.
You know what's also got, what you may not like?
What?
It's got hots, as we call them.
Hots?
Are you okay with that?
Not
like
if it's,
spicy?
Not if it's too hot.
Well, whatever.
Okay.
Aaron and JP, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Margie's going to eat while we're talking. Go ahead.
Hey guys, yeah, I actually just came from Tony's.
Oh,
I can't emphasize enough what a wonderful guy he is. And the problem is, if you go there, you spend $8. The bread's great, the cold cuts, the vegetable, everything's great. But then you walk out with having spent $80 on everything else.
Did you just say $8 for the sandwich?
Yeah, $7.99 actually.
It's a one person, deal. I work downtown normally, so I've been to Dino's, Monica's, Stella Maria, Rico. It's expensive. It's all good, but it's just like too much, especially if you're eating in the middle of the day. You want to take a nap.
So, nothing wrong with a nap in the middle of the day except 11 to 2.
Exactly.
Hey, by the way, before you go away, is he really a ballroom dancer, or is that BS from Deborah?
I'll take Deborah's word. I've never talked to Tony about his dancing, but he's great. You can talk to him in Italian. If you know Italian, he's a sweetheart. And but yeah, he's got so many things on offer that are tempting. You're not getting out there for just $8.
That's a great call, Aaron. Thanks. By the way, Zoe says, I will note that when I called Tony's to place my order, this is pretty great. He said he had to chop some vegetables, so it would take longer than usual. I mean, that's like Fresh City, right? I mean, that's a huge
it's very,
thing.
very good. I just had Tony's. It's very, very good.
I'll try that next.
Somebody else says, American Provisions in South Boston, locally sourced products, and the best pickled Chardonnay.
What's the answer? Chardonnay? You're Italian. What's the deal with you? You have no idea.
He has no
you're
idea.
very helpful.
Okay.
Talking to Jamie. 877-301-8970 is
Anthony's
the number.
in Stoneham Square has the best Italian sub, hands down, enormous and delicious. We get their 4-foot sub every Christmas Eve.
That's
That
pretty
is really
good.
fun when you get these huge subs and everybody shares them.
You know, I was shocked the other day when you ordered the gyms. We'll get back to your calls
I
in a
did.
second. 877-301-897. Not just because it was the gyms,
Mhm.
but because you're not like an
Italian,
big cold cut
no. But
kinda
sometimes
gal.
you just get
What's
a
up?
craving for meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you feel like
I
you haven't
do.
had meat in a long time.
I have
It's
most
one of
days
those
I have
days that I had that craving, and I said, I'm going to go over and get the gym at the Newsfeed Cafe, and it was wonderful. Here's another one. The Regatta Club from Regatta Deli in Worcester, says Kristen from Worcester. It's
Worcester.
great.
But
Yes.
you got to go to Worcester.
You got to go to Worcester.
Yeah,
that's right.
the whole issue, too. By the way, we were told the phones, we're having an issue with the phones. Keep trying to call 877-301-8970, excuse me.
Jim.
We'll try to resolve soon, yeah.
Iggy's Bread in Cambridge makes a great Italian.
I didn't know that.
I've seen Iggy's
I didn't even know
Bread.
they made sandwiches.
I didn't either. I know Woody, the UPS driver, says, and he should know because he's a UPS driver.
Yeah.
Iggy's Bread is great, but I've never had the sub there. I didn't even know you could go there and
Iggy's
get
bread
one.
is fab. By the way, as I said to that guy before who said it's got to be both, the bread is huge. I don't know where Newsfeed gets their bread from, but don't you think the bread on the gym is spectacular?
It's great.
It's like the perfect crunchy, the perfect whatever the hell. What's that? They make the bread? Oh, it's Iggy's.
It's Iggy's,
Oh, I didn't-
okay.
Thank you, Karen. Karen runs the joint. Karen says Ziggy's, which is pretty great. It's really good.
Can we talk to Jill from Medway, or is it impossible?
But unfortunately, other people are having trouble getting through. But
Oh,
we're going to
I'm
fix
sorry.
it, so be patient.
Jill from Medway, thank you for calling.
Hey, Jill.
Hi. I want to say Tutto Italiano in Hyde Park, in River Street, on River Street between Hyde Park and Dedham.
Okay.
They have a great panino. It's wonderful homemade bread and prosciutto, mozzarella, lettuce, tomato, and vinaigrette. It's wonderful.
And by the way, was that not mentioned? Wasn't Tutto Italiano mentioned? We just didn't get one, I think, in the story. The issue is, is the owner a ballroom dancer like Tony is, Jill? Do you know?
I don't know. Emilio, I know he's a biker. He does long distance biking.
So, as in bicycle or motorcycle? Which?
No. Bike and running. He's a runner.
Oh, he's like an athlete
They
kind
have
of thing.
a running club. No, I don't know about ballroom dance.
Well, check it out and get back to us. Jill, thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it.
I'm looking for tutu. I don't see
Not
it yet.
tutu. Tutu is a little thing you wear when you're a little kid.
Okay.
Or you're dancing. It's tutto.
Tutto, okay.
Italiano.
I'm looking.
Now, I'm going to try
I did see New
Tony's.
Deal fruit.
Did you try Tony's,
Yes,
the ballroom
Tony's
dancer? How is it?
great. It's delicious. I mean, you know, the problem here, Jim, is they're all really good.
They're all good.
They're all really good. I mean, it's kind of
Don't
hard
talk
to go
with your
wrong.
mouth full either.
No, don't talk with your mouth full, but you already did. New Deal fruit, that's another one in Revere that's mentioned. And then they have a bunch of different ones at the Double Play. The Double Play, have you heard of the Double
No, I
Play?
haven't.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where that is.
Can I ask you a question
What?
about radio? Because you've been in the business for a long
Yep.
time.
Oh, here's Tutto.
Yes.
Tutto Italiano opened in 1987, in Hyde Park, as the caller just said. The best Italian in Boston, in Hyde Park, Tutto Italiano. Siblings Emilio and Marilena
Exactly.
Loscilento?
Whoever they are.
We should ask our Italian
Yeah.
producer. Run the shop with their father, Angelo, who's been there for years,
love
since
that, actually.
1987. So that's kind of a family thing. And Angelo is the founder of the Cambridge restaurant Gran Gusto, Jim.
Oh, I've been to Gran Gusto,
Which
but
he
that closed,
sold
I
to
think.
partners
Oh, he sold,
in
that's
2013.
Yeah, I didn't close. I don't want to hurt their business. He sold it. That's
Yes,
right.
and they bake the bread on site every single
Now,
solitary day.
I want to ask you a radio question,
What?
since you're
Should
a
you eat
radio
when you're on the
professional.
radio?
No, here's the
No,
question.
you shouldn't.
No, I know you're not supposed to eat when you're on the radio. If you have a call-in segment, do you need to be able to
You
take
do.
calls? You do.
You do. You need
Well,
to be
that's
able to take
unfortunate
calls.
because the phone's not working. It's still not working. Okay, good.
What is really cool is how everybody at these places takes such incredible care in making these Italians. Listen to this. This is Dino's. It's Friendly Cafe. Now, where is Dino's? I got to figure out where Dino's is. It's in the North End.
Yeah.
It's the North End
Yeah.
epicenter, really, of the Italian. And they serve a long list of pasta dishes. The Italian there is a little bit pricier. It's $16, but it's 16 inches long.
Well, that's a pretty good deal, too.
16 inches
$1
long,
an
stuffed
inch.
with salami, mortadella, sweet capicola, provolone, all those things. And they are really into the olive oil, the perfect olive oil topping as well.
You know, last time I was in the North End, speaking of how great an experience is for the North End, so many people think it's just for tourists, which it is not. I can't think of the name, which is embarrassing. Does anybody know the name of the place in the North End that's famous for the slice of pizza and the incredible arancini? One of you has to know in the audience. No?
I don't know.
No? In any case, it's really famous. I can't think of the guy's name. You know what happened there? Beyond the fact it's a real family kind of feel, you want to hear this, which really warmed my heart? I handed the guy a couple of bucks for a tip for a slice of pizza. You know what he did?
Give it back to you?
Pushed it back.
He did?
He would not, they wouldn't even take, and I did what a lot of other people do, just left it on the counter so the next person that couldn't pay, assuming there is somebody or whatever, get a free slice. How incredible is that in 2023?
That was very nice of you to leave it on the counter,
No,
Jim.
it wasn't about me, it was about him.
Did you have the Bricco Salameria and Pasta Shop yet?
No.
Because this place...
we haven't tasted that.
Okay,
We have that
so
here.
restaurateur Frank Di Pasquale is all
we know
over
Frank.
the North End.
We know
He's got
Frank.
Bricco Ristorante, Mare Trattoria El Panino.
Excellent pronunciation.
And this board alley off Hanover Street, and this Salameria and Pasta Shop, which sells great Italians there. I think that one is $12.95.
Doesn't he own a great restaurant at the Encore? Doesn't he own a great restaurant at the Encore?
I don't know.
I think he does, yeah.
I haven't been to the
Oh,
Encore
the phones
that
are
much.
working. Let's get them quickly. We're almost done.
Susan and Wellesley, thank you for calling.
Hello, Susan.
Hi.
Hi.
Quick, what do you got?
We've got the Linden store in Wellesley, the Linden store. The Isabella is the thing to get.
Wait, what is an Isabella?
It's prosciutto, basil, mozzarella, drizzle, great baguette. It's amazing.
You know, I'm really glad you called. We haven't mentioned that. Excuse me. Basil is a huge and underappreciated ingredient in a great Italian sub. Would you not agree, Susan?
I totally agree. And they have a traditional Italian, too, for you throwbacks.
Susan, thank you. And thanks to the person in the audience who said Umberto's, whoever did that. That is, thank you over there. That is the name of the fabulous joint on Hanover Street, right on the right-hand side as you're going into the North
Susan,
End.
in Contituate? Contituate?
No, Contituate.
Contituate?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Susan?
Contituate. Whatever it is.
In Norwell.
Whatever.
Okay.
Boy, that was a lot of work for nothing, wasn't it? Wait, is it Contituate? Contituate.
She's in Norwell.
I don't care where she is. How do you say the name of the place? I'm drawing a blank. How do you say Contituate?
Situate.
Contituate.
Situate.
No, not Situate.
Situate. S-C-I. Situate.
Isn't there a co?
No, we totally screwed this up.
Contituate. Thank you.
Okay.
John, sorry, you're in Norwell anyway. That was humiliating. Thank you.
Okay, what's the name of the restaurant again,
Yeah,
Susan? We were all
sorry,
talking
it was
over
Marjorie's fault. Go ahead.
It's Aiello's in Norwell. You go in, you see the huge, 3-foot provolone.
Oh, I love that.
Two,
I love that.
Sawhorses.
Yeah.
Everything's fresh. They even make the bread.
They make the bread there. That's huge. That's a huge part of the deal, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And their main headquarters, I believe, are in Quincy.
So don't go away. Is Norwell near Contituate or not, Susan? Yes or no?
Yes, Norwell is next to Situate.
No, it's not Situate.
She
We're not
said-
talking about
she says
Situate.
it's Situate.
I don't care what she said. We're not talking about Situate. We're talking about Contituate.
I've never heard of Contituate.
Contituate.
Is there
John,
really
did I
such
get
a-
that right or not that time? Thank you.
Okay,
I don't think
where
it's true.
is Contituate,
Well,
please?
obviously Susan doesn't know because she lives next
Do
to
you know?
Situate.
I never heard of
Yes, I
Contituate.
do.
Where is it?
It's right next to North Contituate. It's right south of it. Oh,
Okay.
my God.
Oh, it's
Thank
in
God
Natick.
this
Somebody said it's
nightmare
in
is over.
Natick.
Who
Is
said
it-
it's Natick?
It's in Natick?
You're making that up, right? You have no idea what you're talking about. This guy has no
Okay,
idea.
so the
Trust
set-
me. He's doing this just to screw us. Nice try.
Okay. He says
Thank
it's
you
in
anyway.
Natick.
We
I'm taking him
appreciate
at his word. Never heard of Contituate. Maybe
How do
it's
you
a
say
little neighborhood.
Natick?
I know how to say Natick. That's where the
Exactly.
Natick
Thank you.
collection is, out there on the...
Jeff from Roslindale confirms Tony is a ballroom dancer. That's how he met his wife.
That's very romantic.
That is a wonderful story.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to another
Contituate.
edition of Boston Public Radio. Thank you for coming down to the Boston Public Library. And thanks for listening, if you do, to our podcast. We have a 3-hour one and a half-hour one.
yeah.
I go for the half-hour one myself. Tune in on Monday. Michael Curry from the Mass League at Community Health Centers is with us. The Ground Truth Project's Charlie Sennett, who is going going to fill us in on this continuing tragedy in Gaza and Israel. Food policy analyst Corby Cummer, the Reverends Ira Monroe and Emmett Price for All Revved Up, plus our tech guru Andy Anatko. We want to thank our crew for getting us all these great sandwiches. Zoe
really
Matthews,
good. Thank you.
Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, additional support from Ethan Kotler, who actually went to the North End. He must have walked because there's no place to park over there in the North
Go
End.
ahead. Yeah.
Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. Additional help, as we said, from Ethan Kotler, who got the sandwiches, at least some of the sandwiches.
How many times are you going to mention he got the sandwiches? It isn't like you wrote a book. He got the damn sandwiches.
We want to thank the BPL team, Matthew Glover, Maddie Geyer, Erin Callahan, and Isabella Karen. I am Marjorie Egan.
And let me just say,
We're
Jamie
running
just
out of
said the
time
way you
here.
pronounce Cochituate is Norwell.
Okay.
That's how you pronounce it.
Thank you. Have a great
weekend. Bye.
Bye.